lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Well, you know what? In the end, he did do the right thing, and there were some achievements, and he's an honourable man, and he cared about public service. Guys, that's not what happened just now. In the last half an hour, Keir Starmer resigned, and he resigned because he was pushed. Most of his issues, most of the things which have damned him from, let's face it, within days, within weeks of him becoming Prime Minister back in July 2024, or of his own making. They were things he chose to do, cutting the winter fuel allowance, damning everybody who wanted to have a public inquiry on the grooming gangs as jumping onto the far-right bandwagon, the two-tier policing after the Southport riots. This man brought it on himself. He was not a good Prime Minister.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. Because he's got, let's be honest. But look, I mean, I don't really want to make light of it, but I am cheesed off, Julia, because what we promised in opposition was competence, and it's been anything but. I'm embarrassed. I'm really, truly, honestly, I am embarrassed, because I did think we would be competent. We've not been.
I've no idea whether there'll be a contest or a coronation. But what I do know is the British public have simply had enough of political parties chopping and changing their leaders at will.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:02, the sun is shining. Shall we do this? Let's get that tie straightened. We're on the radio, but we're on the telly as well. And have I got news for you? Top of the morning, welcome to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you for a very busy Sunday morning. And breaking news, Andy Burnham prepares for power with Ed Miliband, architect of Labour's net zero policies, now hotly tipped to become our next Chancellor. Meanwhile, Burnham loyalist Louise Haigh, who masterminded his Makerfield by-election victory, wants to crank up taxes, hand billions to local mayors and loosen borrowing rules to fund Andy's socialist project, which begs the question, will Burnham bankrupt Britain? Can we afford this? And mows down pedestrians in West London. Is this now the price we pay for diversity? How enriching, someone using a car as a weapon on our own people. And is it coming home? England romped to victory against Panama after a shaky start. And what about our new Prime Minister? Is he going to have a shaky start as well? My question to you this morning is a very simple one at 6:04. Well done for being up this early. It's a very simple question. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? 03444991000. Is he the answer? Can we afford this guy? Land taxes, handing billions to local mayors, loosening the fiscal rules. It's all about your opinions. You can text the word TALK and your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note. We love a voice note because we know you're busy, whatever you're up to this morning. Perhaps you're at the tail end of a night shift. Maybe you're still slumbering in bed under the duvet. Get that kettle on, we've got work to do. Perhaps you're up early for a bit of a jog around the park. But what about Burnham? Should he jog on? Where's this guy's mandate? Who asked for him to be Prime Minister? He wasn't even in the House of Commons, not even an MP. Now he's about to take over. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? Kira is taking your calls. Give her a call right now. 0344 499 1000. Andy Burnham is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. And do you know something? It might get me cancelled. Good. Cancel me. Now, let me tell you, there's someone that can't be cancelled. And it's the executive producer of today's show. Let me tell you that Talk, unlike the BBC and ITV, is run on a very tight budget, OK? We cut our cloth. But I'm going to be honest with you, we've splashed the cash today. Lauren, who is senior management, has found the money to bring in for one day only, but I think the first of many. Big Alex Farrell is back. He's our executive producer. This is the genius behind the Julia Hartley-Brewer breakfast show back in the day. He's a wizard. He's the guy that comes in to fix problematic shows. Right? It's like a distress business. He's a troubleshooter. He takes no nonsense. Big Alex Farrell is back. So it's lovely to have him. And let's make his first show back at Talk a very memorable one, shall we? And let's get those calls going. Get your calls into Kira right now. 0344 499 1000. It's a simple question. I need to know the answer because I don't know the answer. So you've got to help me. I need your help. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? I need you to tell me because you know you've got a brain in your head. You've got common sense. You've got life experience. So what do you think about this guy? Are you buying the myth? Is he the answer? Pressing the buttons is our lead engineer, Matt, today, which is fantastic news. He's not legally a grown adult yet. Basically slave labour. What we've done, he's on £4 an hour to pay for Alex Farrell. That's how it goes. It's like Dickensian London out there in the gallery. We don't feed them. We don't water them. And Luke is directing our TV output. Of course, a big change for Alex, for Big Al, is that this is now a television network. It's a global TV network. So you can hear us on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online, but you can watch the show. Head to YouTube, search Talk, and if you're watching now, you see me straighten my hair out a little bit, get the tie ready. OK, folks, we've got work to do. Let's talk. And we start with the front pages. The Sunday Telegraph, tax capital gains more, Burnham ally urges. Did Labour not get the memo that socialism doesn't work? It's a very nice idea, isn't it? You redistribute wealth so that everyone gets a little house and a little garden, everyone gets their food allowance, everyone gets, you know, a can of oil to heat the house. I mean, that's the idea of socialism, that we all just have the same thing. Unfortunately, all it leads to is bankruptcy, terror, misery and poverty. Oh, and death, by the way, as well. Socialism has cost millions of lives. And I'm really worried, actually, Alex Farrell, this will shock you, because one of the cheerleaders behind Andy Burnham's campaign was a lady called Rachel Maskell. She's an MP. I'm sure she's a nice lady, OK, but these folk, they might be nice, but they're horribly deluded and they've got no common sense. Big Rachel Maskell is on the record as saying, she told Times Radio last weekend, that capitalism is not progressive. Yikes. I mentioned Big Alex Farrell, OK? He's got a successful business now since he left Talk and he's back. That's why he's here. He doesn't actually need the money, I'll be honest with you. We need the money, he doesn't. But the bottom line is that you've got one of the biggest cheerleaders of the Burnham project that effectively repudiates capitalism. Be afraid, be very afraid. You've got Louise Haigh, who, by the way, is a fraudster. That's why she left the last government, because of the weird disappearance of a work mobile phone years ago when she worked in industry, and she had to leave her job because of work phones that she thought she'd lost or had been stolen, which turned up in a drawer in her own property. Funny that. Anyhow, so she was the architect of the Makerfield by-election victory. She's talking about a land tax. She wants to loosen the borrowing rules. Are we not already borrowing enough? Is £23 billion in a month by way of borrowing, is that not sufficient to fund this current profligacy? And here's what does my head in. It's Sunday morning, it's 6:10. Now, when I was growing up in the 80s, almost everybody in the country at 6:10 on a Sunday morning was tucked up in bed. In the 80s, when I was a teenager, at 6:10 in the morning on a Sunday, people were maybe getting the kettle on. They were going to perhaps go to church, go for a walk with the family. They were going to go to the pub. But do you know now, the country is so broken that millions of people are working on a Sunday. And you may well be listening to this in a van or in an office somewhere or at home, and you're working on a Sunday. You don't have that privilege of a lie-in. You don't have that privilege of a lunchtime pint on a Sunday or a trip to the church or the synagogue or whatever your place of worship might be. You don't have that privilege anymore because you have to work. So the economy is completely ruined. What ought to be able to happen is you ought to be able to work 5 days a week, 35, 40 hours. That should be enough to cover your bills, but it ain't. There are people watching this show and listening to this show that have to work 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week just to pay the bills. And it's so wrong. And what does this government want to do? Put taxes up more and have more welfareism, have more borrowing, more debt, more interest payments. Whilst Rome burns, it's a real worry, and I don't think it's going to work. Sussex's reconsider trip to Britain over security row. Prince Harry is not happy. He's supposed to come to the United Kingdom in July of next month. I think it's around the 10th of July, is the countdown to Invictus, which is a year from now in Birmingham. And it may be the case that he cancels the trip for the wife and kids. So he's going to come, but he's worried about his security because he's been told he will not have armed royal security when it comes to the United Kingdom. And therefore, it may be that Meghan and Archie and Lily do not return to the UK next month, and he may come on his own. What's happening here is a bitter war of words between Harry and the Home Office, who quite rightly don't want to give him taxpayer-funded security because he left the royal family and gave up his royal duties. And therefore, I think this guy, Harry, is very entitled, very selfish, very spoiled, very indulgent. You can't have your cake and eat it. If you'd stayed in the royal family and continued to open hospital wings and go to those military events and do all of the things that are required of a frontline member of the royal family, you would have the armed cops. But you chose privacy. You chose a commercial existence in Hollywood, California. You chose the book Spare and the Oprah interview and the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary in which you attacked the family, the institution of the monarchy and the United Kingdom. So I'm afraid, Harry, you're going to have to make your bed and lie in it. But at the moment, it appears that Harry will come to the UK, but not Meghan and not the kids. How do you feel about paying for his security? Let me know. Met Police could reopen more than 4,000 grooming gang cases. Good, because the Met Police have been asleep at the wheel on this one. Whether you talk about the Met Chief or indeed the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, they will have you believe that the capital doesn't have grooming gangs. Do me a favour. The Observer, the cost of cool, Yevhen Vaskar on the inequality of heat. God, what a boring newspaper that is. They make everything a pity party, don't they? Everyone's a victim. Mail on Sunday, after Kemi Savage's Education Secretary's politics of envy, class warrior Bridget's family made 900% profit on council home. That's how it works with these lefties. They love money. The lefties, they love their money, don't they? Look at Angela Rayner. Big Ange, the ginger growler herself. She made a fortune on her council property. And then she gets into power and tries to scale back right to buy. So she pockets the money, but you can't. It's classic socialist double standards. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson is at the centre of a new class war row over government plans to stifle the rights of council tenants to buy their homes after her family benefited handsomely from the policy. I've got to say, old Kemi Badenoch, she's hit her stride a bit, hasn't she? She's quite fearless. And she's popular among the public. I think the issue you've got, she's the right leader for the wrong party. She should just join Reform, don't you think? Just be like Shadow Home Secretary or something. The Tory brand is so tainted. There's so little trust there now. A lot of people like the cut of Kemi's jib. They like what she's saying. They like the fact that she's an authentic politician. They like the fact that she slays at Prime Minister's questions. They like the fact that she's the enemy of identity politics. They like the fact that she's fearless, funny, feisty. I think she's attractive too. I think she's a very attractive woman. And I think that's a value in politics, actually. Whilst we're talking about Andy Burnham's lovely eyebrows, I will say that she's a fine woman. The problem she's got is those dusty backbenchers, those closet Lib Dems sat behind her, who don't want to end the cult of welfarism, who don't want to make a success of Brexit, and who don't want to exit the ECHR. She's got a lot of lefties sat behind her on those green benches, and that's the problem. Sunday Express, business too good to stop. People smuggling gang boss makes shocking boast to Sunday Express. A people smuggler whose network plagues Europe laughed at Labour's crackdown on migrants, saying he will not stop as demand is too high for Britain's hospitality. We really are being taken for fools, are we not? And Daily Star, fans want football to be more American. Yanks a lot. Most want halftime shows and cheerleaders. And The Sun on Sunday, Westminster shock. Minister in texts pest rap. Easy for you to say. Inappropriate messages sent to woman MP. Cabinet Minister Nick Thomas Simmons has been accused of sending inappropriate text messages to a female MP. The Paymaster General was called in by the government's ethics team and reminded of his ministerial responsibilities after the allegation surfaced. Married Thomas Simmons is a close ally of the PM, but Keir Starmer's sleazebuster found there were no grounds for a formal investigation and no official reprimand was given. Fine, but this is a married man. He's a public figure. He's serving in the government. He's an elected official. And he's sending inappropriate text messages to a female MP. If that was a Tory or a Reform UK MP, they'd be all over that like a rash. But because it's Labour, because it's somebody on the progressive left, nothing to see here. Sunday Mirror, Burnham exclusive. Devolution revolution, plan to rewire economy by giving more powers to mayors. There you go, folks. More spending, more borrowing, handing billions to these local mayors who are not truly accountable because the turnout for local elections is minuscule. And it was actually Mrs Thatcher that had to fix the problem of local power in the 80s because they were so profligate, so inefficient. She brought it all back to Westminster and transformed the country. Big question this morning, is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? 0344 499 1000. One of the country's most respected journalists live in the studio next.
Andy Burnham just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:20 Talk Breakfast. Happy Sunday, one and all. I hope you're having a good weekend. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? David is in Gloucestershire. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Mark. How are we all?
I'm very well, top of the morning. What do you think? Because there's a lot of hype around Andy Burnham. Many people say that he won the Makerfield by-election on vibes. Well, that's not going to pay the bills, is it?
Oh, it will, Mark. It will. I think he's going to be the best Prime Minister we've ever seen. I really do believe that.
Now, David, have you been on the cooking sherry again?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, what do you think? Because I can feel, David, that establishment media are getting behind this guy. He's like the pin-up boy for The Guardian and The Independent and the BBC. They love him.
They think the world shines out of his what's name, but
yes,
the truth of it is the bloke's a complete charlatan. He's a con man, and that's it. You know, what is it they say? You can con all of the people some of the time and some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And it stands true with all of them. I've seen them all, and I've actually sussed them out. I sussed Tony Blair out. I didn't know anything about the guy. I sussed him out within 5 minutes. I saw him doing an interview. This was before he got elected in '97. And I saw him there, and I went, you are a con man and a charlatan. And I was proved right. And I saw it with Starmer, and I saw it with, and I didn't like the whole Boris wave. I wasn't, you know, I was talking about Boris years ago, and they said, hey, about Prime Minister. And I stood there, I was with my mother at the time. I was laughing. I said, are you having a giraffe? And this was like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, you know, when Theresa May was still in power. And I thought, are they having a laugh? And it's proved right time and time again. And this bloke is absolutely one and all.
Well, David, you took the words out of my mouth. Charlatan, con man, you know, a polished you-know-what. I mean, I do think it's going to be a disaster. I sat down for half a day with Nigel Farage last week, and he said Burnham has got 48 hours. That's how long the honeymoon will be, and he'll be out of his depth. I mean, is that too harsh, or is there something in that?
I think 48 hours is a bit quick, but I think give it a fortnight.
Well, there you go. David, it's a real worry. Go and have a great Sunday. We'll catch up soon. Thank you for your call, young man. Best wishes to your missus as well. Peter's in Liverpool. Peter.
Hi, Mark.
Top of the morning. No, you sound busy. What's going on?
I'm just out for my morning walk.
Good man. Have you got a pet with you? Got like the dog or anything, or just you out on your own?
No, just myself.
And you're getting your steps in, is that it?
Yeah, I usually get around 30,000 a day.
Oh my goodness! I tell you what, Peter, your body's a temple. You're the new. Who's that guy that did all the fitness during the pandemic?
Oh yeah.
You're like him, aren't you? That curly haired chap. Peter, tell me about Burnham. Is he the answer for Britain?
No, but I feel like we've had purpose preems picked for us by the establishment since Liz Truss went. Rishi Sunak went, shock all of a sudden, standing in the pouring rain, handing his resignation in, and basically handing the baton over to Labour because of the 14 years of disaster of the Tories. So they got again another left-wing politician, Starmer, and now we're going for another one, Burnham. What I would like to see with Burnham and other politicians is I would like to see them held accountable in studios like yours, where they're made, where they can't pick and choose where they go to be interviewed. They have to go to certain sectors of the media.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, I can't remember the last time that Talk was granted an audience with Sir Keir Starmer. And we have a weekly reach, just on the radio alone, of 500,000 people.
I watched an interview yesterday with Ed Balls on that programme he does.
Oh, GMB, yeah.
Yeah, with Nigel Farage. And the interview was, to me, it was so aggressive towards Nigel Farage. But at least Nigel Farage goes on those programmes. You'll never see, well, you never see Starmer or we'll never see Burnham put himself forward to be to answer the questions that need answering. You know, these people are just unaccountable.
Keep with us, stay with us if you can, Peter, because live in the studio, one of the most experienced journalists in the country, the former executive editor of the News of the World, Neil Wallace. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Mark.
Actually, Peter raises a good point, because we've talked a lot in the last few days about a lack of a mandate that Andy Burnham has, given the fact that, you know, he wasn't even in the House of Commons. The public did not vote for Andy Burnham in 2024. There's also a question mark there from Peter about accountability, that figures like Burnham and Starmer won't appear on Talk and won't do interviews with some of the papers either.
I don't think that's particularly new, because they're not interested in anybody asking them a hard question. They, you know, where do you see Starmer being interviewed repeatedly? Sky News. Why? Because they will offer him and give him the patsy questions. He can sit there, say whatever he likes, pardon me, and essentially get told they're their Prime Minister, they're all misunderstanding you. You know, more power to your elbow. It is a farce. The truth is that they will go, as you've seen in recent weeks, they will go to the Daily Mirror, they will go to The Guardian, they will go to Sky News, and they will go to BBC News. Will they submit themselves to proper, penetrating questions from the centre or right of centre media? They don't want to do it.
And it's an insult to our viewers and listeners that Starmer or Burnham won't appear on this network. It's an insult to the millions of people that read the Sun newspaper every day, or the Telegraph, or the Times, and it's not accountable, and they ought to be.
Well, they absolutely ought to be, but they don't want to answer hard questions. And, I mean, the thing that goes with that is the way that the Labour ministers smear anybody who asks the hard question of them as far right. That's millions upon millions upon millions of people across this country. And, you know, you've got Reform getting on for 25-30% of the vote. Those people are just dismissed and branded as far right by this Labour government, because it's easier than answering hard questions. And then Starmer is shocked and appalled, I say, to be told that people think he's an idiot and want rid of him.
Well, Mrs. Thatcher said that when your opponents resort to insults and labels, then they've lost the argument. And that's where we are with the progressive left now in this country. Because if you say, I'm pro-immigration, but it's currently too high, if you say that we must be patriotic and have a multi-ethnic society based around British values, you're a bigot. If you say that there are two sexes, you're some kind of monster. This is where we're going wrong.
That's completely true, I'm afraid. It's astonishing to have watched the way this has changed in recent years, that anything that does not fulfil, does not fit in with the contemporary, soft, London-centric, university-centric, sort of middle-class Labour Party that exists now, is just beyond the pale. It is just dismiss ordinary people who sit there and have a view that doesn't fit with their right-on view, are just branded as far right, and their views are dismissed. And that, of course, is what has led to the rise of Reform. Reform aren't just there because Nigel Farage likes a pint and is a good bloke. They're there because people are saying someone will listen to us. And what is politics about? Politics is about having a message that people are willing to hear and people are willing to listen to, and most of all, the electorate want to be heard.
Most definitely, and I think Reform UK and Nigel Farage are of the making of the Uniparty right? They are, I wouldn't say it's not like Frankenstein's monster, but this is a side effect of, a consequence of the establishment ignoring the public. And as you say, they like Farage because they feel heard, they feel acknowledged. Can you sense now, having been a national newspaper editor for many, many years and on Fleet Street for decades, the quarters of the press are now creating a narrative around Andy Burnham, the sort of great heroic figure? Can you see that playing out? You've got the front page of the Sunday Mirror, Burnham exclusive, devolution, revolution. Do you think the press is starting to sell this guy now in a certain way?
Certainly the left are, and you see it there. I mean, this is one of the most interesting things about this. What this is revealing already. You can see how Burnham's people have been briefing to anybody who will listen about this devolution revolution, and that's what is going to be his big pitch, as it were. What that has to do with someone who is actually living on the breadline, struggling to pay their bills in the centre of London, in the centre of Manchester, in the areas of Cornwall where I spend much of my life, in the suburbs, in real life, in the north, which is, you can hear, this is where I come from.
Yeah.
You know, does it cut through with them? They just look. And what worries me about it, it further damages the credibility of politics as a whole. That's the damage, that people no longer think these people matter or are worth listening to. Now that is a formula for extremism.
And what I'm worried about, and I agree with you on that one, is that so much of this is cosmetic. The idea of moving parts of Number 10 to Manchester. I mean, we have a
gesture politics,
isn't it? We've got the telephone lines, we've got the internet, we have Zoom, you know, and Teams and all the rest of it. And similarly, the regional mayors, well, you're just shuffling the money around. And like you said, I mean, probably what you're going to have is more layers of bureaucracy, more inefficiency, and I would argue less accountability, because you'll remember, as I do, that in the 80s it was Mrs. Thatcher who had to deal with inefficient, profligate local authorities that were unaccountable because turnout at local elections is much lower than at a general election. She brought everything back to central control. But now, under this Labour administration, we're going the other way.
Well, what you do have, I think, a big question that Burnham will try to capitalise on is you have too much control in the bureaucracy in London by the civil service. You have this enormous blob that have there's no repercussion for them when they get it wrong.
So true.
They don't care. All they're interested in. I've got a family member who has worked in the civil service who quit in disgust because the only thing that mattered to the civil service was the civil service. He was working on the project, getting on for £2 million on this project, and then a face changed in the bureaucracy and they just scrapped it. This £2 million that came from you and me and the listeners to our programme, the viewers who look in and look for answers, right? It's their money. That's the disgrace of it.
And they're working overtime. Yeah, and the tax that they pay on that overtime is going towards that waste, which, you know,
precisely.
The number of folk that have called this programme saying I'm at the end of a 12-hour shift, I'm on the 6th day of my working week, and I think it's worth being nostalgic, because when I came on air, I just pointed out that when I was growing up in the 80s, most people didn't work on a Sunday. The majority of the population didn't work on a Sunday. They had a lie-in. Some would go to church, others would go for a lunchtime pint, and it was a day of rest for most people. The shops were closed. Well, people can't do that now. The number of people that have to work on a Sunday because of an economy that does not work for the people.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I mean, I'm all for the work ethic, but you shouldn't have to do 6-7 days a week, should you?
Those people you're talking about, you know, who used to look forward to Sunday, right? They had work ethic. They worked themselves to the bone in those other 6 days, you know, and they were entitled. But nobody thinks anything of the common working man and woman anymore. They're just being shuffled around and they're ignored. And that is dangerous. You don't listen. If the leadership don't listen to the people who vote for them, that's spelling trouble. And that's what you're seeing here. And this stuff we've been reading over the last few days, how he's going to, it's just a piece of PR whereby they're saying, we're going to come out to you in the red wall seats and we prove that we can. And you can vote for us again and put us back into office, you know. That's all this is about. This is just window dressing. What we want to know is get down the cost of living, give people a decent life, listen to what they have to say, do what you're told, because that's what they need to do. The last thing that the people in power of, the Andy Burnhams of the world, have not the slightest concern, really, about what ordinary people think.
Folks, what are your first impressions of Andy Burnham? Is he the answer for Britain? 0344 499 1000 636. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:37 Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. Let me get to some of your messages. A simple question this morning. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? Let me just get this thing going here because we are live and we have this wonderful technology at our disposal. I think the issue we've got is credibility when it comes to Andy Burnham because nobody voted for this guy. And I'm tired of being told that our system is not presidential and that we elect the party, not the person. Well, it doesn't work like that because in reality it is presidential because those leaders' debates didn't feature the whole party or cabinet ministers. It featured Starmer versus Sunak. And by the way, I don't know about you, but wouldn't you have Sunak back now in a flash just to sort things out? How about this? Ian, good morning, Mark. The right brand and name called the left. Trendy London University middle class Marxist two-tier loony left. So maybe your guest is projecting. Steve says, good morning, Mark. Without a mandate, what's the rumour that Burnham will present his own manifesto to the party in September? That's it. No election, just a new manifesto. I'm sick and tired of these lefty woke communist millionaires reinventing the political scene to suit themselves with no comeback, says Steve. How about that? We'll get to more of your messages in just a moment. But first up, let's take a voice note. Here is Paul. Take a listen.
Morning, Mark. It's Paul living in Spain. Regarding Andy Burnham, you've got to take your hat off to the guy. He's got himself seen as the Messiah without giving any real mandates, without any policies where he's going to take the country. And yet the really, really worrying thing is people are falling for the spin. If I was him, I would probably call a general election now because it appears that he seems to be getting very popular. However, give it 3 months in power, maybe 6 months, people will realise what they've done. As they did with Starmer, believe the lies, believe the spin. It's a mess. And this is why I live in Spain. Cheers, bud.
Paul, you're a lucky man, and I've lost count of the number of viewers and listeners to this show who say that if they could afford to leave this country, they would. Neil, what are the chances of a snap election in the autumn?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely no chance whatsoever. Burnham is a lucky guy. Burnham is a lucky guy. He's replacing a guy who has proved to be a total dud, a total loser, a deeply, 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 with an extra deeply, unpopular guy. But a guy who has got a huge majority. There is no chance. Simply in the way of things, the majority of, they got over 400 Labour MPs. The simple nature of things will mean that if you called a general election now, even if they're doing reasonably well, you would see a big fall off on that number, come what may. So what you would be doing would be whittling down your power base. What Burnham will be looking at will be, he will want time to consolidate and to create his own dialogue. He will want to have time to present a mandate to go forward, even though it hasn't been voted on. But he will be looking for an opportunity to say, I said this and I've achieved this. And he's got 3 years to do it. Do we really think he's going to take the chance of saying, no, I'll trust it all to those people who actually feel deeply betrayed over the last 2 years because they did vote against the Tories. They voted for this Labour Party. Is he going to risk that? He'd be a lunatic too. He's not going to do it, trust me.
And I sat down, Neil, with Nigel Farage for half a day last week in an exclusive interview for the Daily Express. Very interesting conversation. He said there are two types of people in politics, those who want to be something and those who want to do something. And he put into the former category Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer and Andy Burnham. Three people who, although adhering to different political ideologies, essentially wanted power for power's sake, wanted to be Prime Minister. What did he have with Boris? Wanted to be world king when he was a kid. Yeah. Get that top job. This is a guy that before Brexit writes 2 articles for The Telegraph, one in favour of Brexit, one against. He gets into power. Then, of course, we've had the same thing with Starmer, who worked very hard on becoming Prime Minister but had no plan for government. And I think we're the same situation with Burnham now. And then you've got a figure like Farage, who doesn't have any great appetite to be Prime Minister, but wants to fix immigration, wants to fix the economy. Those are the two types of politicians, and there are too many of the former, not enough of the latter.
Well, that's precisely right, isn't it? What you saw, there was no difference really between Boris and Starmer, was there? All they wanted was to be in power. They wanted the job. They didn't have some dream about how they were going to make this work. You know, several times this morning we've already mentioned, or had mentioned, Margaret Thatcher. She came in and she had a dream about what she wanted to do with the country. Do we really think that Starmer ever had a great plan? The answer, we know the answer to that. There was no. Boris had a great plan. It was to keep Boris in power, because all Boris was interested in was Boris.
And he used Brexit as a vehicle to achieve power.
Jumped on it.
And fair play to him for getting Brexit across the line. That will be his positive legacy. 2 great things happened in 2019. We kept Jeremy Corbyn out of power and we got Brexit done. And I do think that history will judge Boris kindly, but if you set those 2 issues aside, his handling of the pandemic and no serious plan for government. I mean, the greatest squandered opportunity. We've seen it back to back now, haven't we? We've seen the Tories squander 2019.
Precisely.
And we've seen Labour squander 2024. So Labour and the Tories, they're starting to look like 2 cheeks of the same backside.
Well, very nicely put, Mark.
Can I apologise if you're having your breakfast? Yeah. You've just spat out your scrambled eggs.
Yeah. Yes. Thank goodness I wasn't drinking coffee at that moment.
You just spat it out.
Yes, exactly. But you're completely right that they had no belief. They didn't believe in anything. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You have to believe in something to make things happen. You have to have a heartfelt plan. And, you know, what you saw, we are now in this world where people are in politics as a job. They're in politics as a career. They're in politics to become famous, to to get a profile, to be seen rather than to do. And that's where we have the problem. And, you know, I'm old enough to remember Andy Burnham in office. He was a very, very ineffectual, no-mark cabinet minister.
Yep.
He was there because he was part of the team.
He went with the flow. He was a Blairite, then he became a Brownite.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you want me to be today? You know, because what he was interested in being in office rather than actually doing something.
Climbing the greasy pole.
Yeah, that's all he was interested in. And, you know, you look at the very careful marketing has gone into him. Actually, you know, this whole thing about the T-shirt and the eye makeup.
Yeah. I like to call him Man at M&S. Well, that's his brand, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Doesn't exactly press your buttons, though, does it?
Not really, no. He's cracked the smart casual look, but can he fix broken Britain? I doubt it.
I don't think so. I don't have a lot of faith at all. And the way that the Labour Party, that sickening photograph of where he did the selfie with all of those Labour MPs behind him who didn't give a tinker's cuss about him a year ago. 6 months ago, they didn't give a tinker's cuss about him. But now, he could get him a job. So there they all are, gurning away in the background. Even Rachel Reeves turned up.
Correct.
Even though he's going to fire her. You know, but where you do have the danger is he believes in himself in the same way that Boris believed in himself, and he will stick people into government offices that really, really matter. Can this country survive Ed Miliband as a potential chancellor? I fear we're going to find out.
Well, that's one of our questions this morning, and if that does happen, will Burnham bankrupt Britain? Here's a voice note from Peter.
Good morning, Mark. The short, sharp answer to that is no. He is going to be Starmer on steroids, Feathers the Penguin out on bail. Andy Vermin is certainly not the choice for Britain, because if people think it's been bad under Starmer as the Feathers Penguin, it's going to be 10 times worse under this bloke. He's standing there with that monobrow grin, you know, trying to think, I'm going to be great for Britain. But there's something fishy going on, isn't there? Not a regular, experienced backbencher getting to the front and getting the job, but somebody who's been out of Parliament for a long time and been a very bad mayor of Manchester, where he's overlooked these grooming gang things. I won't say anything else because I'm not allowed to say other things on TV, I understand. But, you know, no, he's not a good choice for Britain. He's going to be exceptionally bad. Yeah, exceptionally bad. Have a nice day. Don't melt, don't break your glasses, don't spill anything down your shirt.
Peter, wonderful voice note. Keep them coming. Cliff in Berkshire. Good morning, Mark, and hello, Neil. I completely agree with you about Kemi Badenoch being the right leader for the wrong party. She's great and appears to be actually a Conservative, which is rare in the current so-called Conservative Party. In my view, the rot set in with David Cameron, the heir to Blair. Cliff, thank you for that. A simple question this morning. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? More front pages next.
Starmer's old news. On to the next. There we go. That was Andy Burnham just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. Because if he's got...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 6:51, live in the studio, the former executive editor of the News of the World, Neil Wallace. Mail on Sunday, after Kemi Savage's Education Secretary's politics of envy, class warrior Bridget's family made 900% profit on council home. You wouldn't be able to make this up, folks. This is quite extraordinary. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson is at the centre of a new class war row over government plans to stifle the rights of council tenants to buy their homes after her family benefited handsomely from the policy. Labour MPs professed outrage last week when Tory leader Kemi Badenoch branded Phillipson a spiteful class warrior for her attack on private schools. Undeterred, Conservatives last night ramped up the pressure on the Cabinet Minister over Labour's housing policies that they see as yet another attack on aspiration. Now, Neil Wallace, we saw this with Angela Rayner, who also handsomely profited from the sale of her council house under Mrs Thatcher's Right to Buy scheme, a scheme that this Labour government want to scale back. So they pocket the cash whilst the rest of us have no such opportunities.
This could be me. This could be me. I came from a single-parent family in a council house. We couldn't actually afford to do this. And it is, as you quite rightly pointed out, this is Angela Rayner. It's funny how these sort of vociferous lefties were so good at this, isn't it?
It's amazing.
You know, and the virtue signalling. I came, you know, my tough upbringing. Well, yeah, it was pretty tough compared to Starmer's lovely life, you know, and he always tried to pretend to be a working class warrior. But, you know, when you look at that kind of thing, you think that wasn't what it was for. That wasn't what it was for. And, you know, good for her for sort of making a difference and getting on with her life. But don't try to be virtuous. There were a lot of people like me who similarly came from backgrounds like that, and we didn't end up pocketing the government's cash. We didn't end up sort of benefiting from cashing in on the opportunity we had. We had a chance to get out there and make things work in life. And I wouldn't mind this woman choosing to be a politician. Good for her. Of
course.
But falsely painting yourself as some kind of miracle worker, you know, there's many of us like this. Many of us like this. She's nothing special. She's just somebody who whose family made a huge amount of money out of it.
Well, and this is what the left do, which is that they line their own pockets. So they profit from Mrs Thatcher's right to buy, but pull up the ladder for everyone else.
Precisely. I mean, one of the horrible things in this story is when you read further down into the detail and you discover what you were talking about, how they are scaling back massively the amount of people who will be able to do this in the future, to buy their own homes. Because Thatcher always realised, once you've got an interest in your own home, in your own bricks and mortar, it changes the way you look at life. But it's a sort of smugness of these people who, like with Rayner, who's got this flat on the south coast, Hove, and she's living the life of Riley. Yet she presents as though she is a victim. And, you know, they were given an opportunity, which, good for them, they took. You know, people are entitled to make the best of themselves, but pretending that you're better than the rest is just ridiculous.
And you are the former executive editor of the News of the World, and you're somebody that's worked in red top journalism for decades at the top level and with some of the best people, including Kelvin MacKenzie and others. What about this for a lovely old school sort of 80s style front page splash in the Sun on Sunday, right? It's nostalgic. It's like the good old days, isn't it, right? MP up to no good. So here's the headline: Westminster shock. Minister in texts pest rap. Easy for you to say, by the way. I nearly spat my false teeth out. Inappropriate messages sent to woman MP. Cabinet Minister Nick Thomas-Symonds has been accused of sending inappropriate text messages to a female MP. The Paymaster General was called in by the government's ethics team and reminded of his ministerial responsibilities after the allegation surfaced. He's a close ally of the Prime Minister, but Keir Starmer's sleazebuster found there were no grounds for a formal investigation, no official reprimand, but he is a married man and he's not denied sending these messages to a female colleague. So there's definitely a story there, isn't there, Neil?
There is, and you know what? Before they brought in the Leveson inquiry that neutered newspapers, there was a story like that in the News of the World every other week, because I remember having a conversation with Nigel Farage about this. I said to him, I said exactly that to him, and I pointed at the House of Parliament and said, it's still going on in there, you know. It's just that we haven't got the ability to report it anymore. And the more that they can, the more that they will stop organisations, news organisations, telling the truth. And that's where you get stories like that, because they can get away with it now.
Most definitely. In the House of Commons, in Parliament, they are, many of them, not all of course, but many of them are lining their pockets, focusing on their careers, getting drunk in subsidised bars. Some of them are doing lines of cocaine in the toilets of the House of Commons. And it's also, for many, a knocking shop. They're getting their end away.
How do you get this job?
It's not bad, is it? I mean, it's nearly like working for Talk, actually. You know, I mean, we're on another level. If only we can but dream. It is quite extraordinary. Let's take a voice note if we can. This is Adam. Take a listen.
From Bournemouth. Yeah, just a quick one. I reckon, and this is just my opinion, I reckon as soon as everybody or the media start questioning Andy Burnham on his politics of what he wants to do, it's going to unfold quicker than a stack of cards. You'll see. At the moment, he's all happy days, smiley, with his black T-shirt on and glasses and his eyebrows pristine. But you watch. 3 to 6 months, as soon as the media start questioning, start firing, and I think Andy Burnham's the sort of man that doesn't want to be disliked, and we'll soon find out the real Andy Burnham. Anyway, mate, great show. Keep up the great fight, as I know you will.
Adam, thank you for that. Well, you want to listen to today's Dolan's Dispatch, which is on that very subject of Andy Burnham and how quickly he'll be found out. Quick word on Prince Harry, Neil Wallace. He may now cancel plans to bring the wife and kids to the UK because the Home Office are not granting him armed royal protection. Does he deserve armed cops?
No. Why should I pay for him? Pretty straightforward. You know, he doesn't do anything for the country, does he? Runs it down quite a lot. Why should I pay for him? You pay for him. Adam pays for him. You know, why? He's trying to make money hand over fist because of the family he was born into.
See, there you go. More on Harry and more on Burnham next. This is Talk Breakfast.
The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question. And I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Well, you know what? In the end, he did do the right thing, and there were some achievements, and he's an honourable man, and he cared about public service. Guys, that's not what happened just now. In the last half an hour, Keir Starmer resigned, and he resigned because he was pushed. Most of his issues, most of the things which have damned him from, let's face it, within days, within weeks of him becoming Prime Minister back in July 2024, or of his own making. They were things he chose to do, cutting the winter fuel allowance, damning everybody who wanted to have a public inquiry on the grooming gangs as jumping onto the far-right bandwagon, the two-tier policing after the Southport riots. This man brought it on himself. He was not a good Prime Minister.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. If he's got, let's be honest. But look, I mean, I don't really want to make light of it, but I am cheesed off, Julia, because what we promised in opposition was competence, and it's been anything but. I'm embarrassed. I'm really, truly, honestly, I am embarrassed because I did think we would be competent. We've not been.
I've no idea whether there'll be a contest or a coronation. But what I do know is the British public have simply had enough of political parties chopping and changing their leaders at will. We vote for somebody in a general election to be our Prime Minister. We expect them to serve their term. And barring ill health or exceptional circumstances, what is going on here, frankly, is reminiscent of a banana republic that has totally devalued the very process of general elections and democracy. We at Reform demand a general election.
Across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side.
Two minutes past 7, top of the morning. Happy Sunday, one and all. Good news, God has turned the temperature down. Suddenly Britain is habitable again. We're at the tail end of a heat wave. How are you feeling this Sunday morning? Lovely to have your company, whatever you're up to. Perhaps you're still slumbering in bed. Or perhaps you're at the tail end of a night shift, in which case we salute your contribution to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the great British economy. Happy Sunday, one and all. Breaking this morning, Andy Burnham prepares for power with Ed Miliband, architect of Labour's net zero policies, tipped to become Chancellor. Meanwhile, Burnham loyalist Louise Haigh, who masterminded his Makerfield by-election victory, wants to crank up taxes, hand billions to local mayors and loosen borrowing rules to fund Andy's socialist project, which begs the question, will Burnham bankrupt Britain? Can we afford this man? In number 10. Meanwhile, a Somalian man mows down pedestrians in West London. A very underreported story. Well, we're going to talk about it this morning because this is happening far too often. Cars being used as weapons. Machete attacks, terror. Is this the price we pay for diversity? And, on a more positive note, is it coming home? England romped to victory against Panama after a shaky start. And what about our new Prime Minister? Is he going to have a shaky start? How long before he gets found out in high office? My question to you this morning is a simple one. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? Do you like the look of this guy? What are your first impressions? Is he the answer? Will he do a good job? Will he be a good Prime Minister? Because I don't know, so I need your help on this one. You've got a head on your shoulders. You've got life experience. You've got common sense. So I need your help. Andy Burnham, yes or no? Andy Burnham, yes or no? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Kira is taking your calls this morning. Book your place on the show. Address the nation. Drop a few truth bombs. No one gets cancelled, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? Andy Burnham, yes or no? Text the word talk in your message to 87. I'm delighted to say you can hear us on the radio, DAB Plus in app and online. You can also watch the show. Head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. And the brilliant Luke is directing our TV output. Wonderful to have your company, whether on TV and on the radio. Live in the studio is the former executive editor of News of the World, the titan of Fleet Street, Neil Wallace. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning.
Very good to have you in the studio. And down the line, former Met Police Detective Inspector Mike Neville. Good morning, Mike.
Detective Chief Inspector.
Yes, you've just been demoted and we'll have to correct that. I'd like to apologise and I will be facing a disciplinary after the show. Mike, lovely to see you and great to have Neil in the studio. Can I ask you about this attack in West London yesterday in the leafy suburb of Ealing? This is a Somali-born British man who's been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a car hit several people on a busy shopping street in the West London suburb. 5 people were injured, with 3 taken to hospital following the incident on Ealing Broadway. It happened yesterday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. None of the injuries were believed to be life-threatening. The Met Police said a 34-year-old Somali-born driver fled the scene but was stopped in nearby Grange Park a short time later, where he was arrested on suspicion of dangerous driving and attempted murder. Mike, this is happening too often. Is this the price we're paying for diversity?
I'm afraid when you look at the levels of crime and you compare it with immigration, there are definitely some links. And we've seen this with sex offences, for example. Afghanis 20 times being more likely to commit sexual offences than British-born people. So the links are for all to see. I mean, I always go back to the stat that in 1951 there was 150 robberies reported in the whole year in the whole of London. There's now that many every single day.
And those are the ones reported, Michael.
They're the ones who report it. I think what's changed here, Mark, is when you read out that information, is that the police are now being forced to give this information that this man was originally from Somalia. For many, many years, lots of this information was covered up. Exactly. And since the Southport incident and the wicked murders by Axel Ruder Cabana, we had that nonsense of the Cardiff's choir boy given to us, that the authorities now are forced to tell the truth. And I think that's right. I mean, the Met are saying here there are no terrorist links. Maybe it was a criminal act, maybe it was targeting somebody, but we'll have to wait and see. But the facts are we have brought people to this country from very violent nations, and nations often where women are treated not as second but as third and fourth class citizens, and there is a consequence to that. So, you know, these people do not become perfect citizens in a day or a year or whatever, and so we've really got to look at, are we bringing in immigrants who bring something to this nation, or are we bringing in immigrants who bring crime? And we've really got to look at that.
Yes, and Michael, you know, I actually really like the fact that I've been around since the 70s, because like you and like Neil and like so many of our audience, I've seen the country change, Mike. And I worry for the next generation because they don't realise what we once had that we've now relinquished. And I can assure you that in the 1980s, Mike Neville, vehicles were not used as a weapon against the population.
Never. This is a recent phenomenon that's come forward, but it's very easy, isn't it, to get a car and to drive. And we see the consequences everywhere. Every Christmas market's got bollards. You walk across London Bridge these days, there's bollards everywhere. And so it has become a nightmare where the authorities have got to look at every single place where there could be this sort of thing. I was out in Gibraltar. There's even bollards up the main street in Gibraltar. So everywhere is really concerned about this. There's a lot of it happening in Germany in particular, we see, in France, all over Western Europe. And the government have got to take responsibility for this. They have allowed into this country people who do not like our values and are prepared to do the most wicked things.
Neil Wallace, is ethnicity a relevant factor here or not?
I think culture is really what it is about. And I thought Mike actually put his finger on something. We've allowed the people into this country who have no interest in or concern about the way we live our lives and the way we want our children and our grandchildren, in my case, to have a life to lead. And that has all been increasingly whittled away at, damaged, because there are now so many people in this country who simply don't share a culture which is about being moderate, reasonable, understanding and caring about each other. It's just gone.
It's not the British way to have machete attacks on the street. It's not the British way to throw acid in people's faces. And Neil, it's not the British way to mow down members of the public with a vehicle.
No, what's being imported along with this is the lack of regard for human life. And I'm afraid you've only got to look at the way things have happened in other parts of the world who are now washing up on our shores and we just let them stay here. That disregard for the sanctity of human life is simply not there. And it is an integral part of our culture, the British culture. You know, if you come here, then absorb that. And that is about respect for other people, regard for other people, and living and let live. What we are seeing is this dreadful wave of viciousness and a disregard for what you do to other human beings.
Well, that's a powerful line, isn't it, Mike, from Neil there, this idea of a disregard for the sanctity of life. I think that's an important point.
Well, people are coming from countries where, you know, there's death and mayhem everywhere, you know, and you don't, if you come from that place, that's what you're used to. You know, we have got some people in this country, for example, groups like Indian doctors who bring so much to this 100%. Nation.
Nigerian nurses, Singaporean engineers.
The Filipinos seem to fill in hospitals as well.
Yeah.
But when we've got to be choosy. When you should run the country like we run our house. We choose who comes into our house. We look at people and say, is this person going to be really nice to my family? Do I want to introduce them to my children? Or are they a risk? And if they're a risk, you slam the door and you don't let them in. But we've been so stupid. The government, as I've said before many times, there are people on the left who have this multicultural dream and they're prepared to have it no matter how stupid it gets, no matter what badness we bring into this nation. We've always had our own criminals who've done wicked and vicious things. But we don't need to import criminals. If we're going to bring people into this country, we check them, we make sure, just like I said, if you're coming into your house, they bring in something valuable into it. And that hasn't been done for years. And this is why we're in this crime-fueled mess of a nation at the moment.
Let's stay on the theme of a mess. Oh dear, how do you solve a problem like Prince Harry, Neil and Mike? Dismay for the King, as Harry says he may not bring Meghan and the kids to the UK. So, Mike Neville, what's happened is that it appears that Harry has been refused armed royal protection when he's in the UK with Meghan, Lily and Archie. It means he may now come to the UK next month alone. Your reaction, Mike?
Well, I do feel sorry for the king here. As I said before, I'm a bit Cromwellian about these things, but I'm a granddad and the king's a granddad, and not to be able to see his grandchildren. And I've no doubts there are some lunatics out there and some very vicious criminals who could think these are good people to kidnap and blackmail and get money. So I personally can't see why we can't provide some kind of armed officers, because the problem you have here, so people understand, is in the States you can pay for your own armed security staff. In the UK, you cannot have private security who carry firearms. So on a personal level, I think, why can't they come in? Maybe the king could chip in a few quid into the police budget so that the matter's covered. But I just feel sorry on a human level for the king. He should see his grandchildren. If this is a blocker, then I'm sure somebody can find a way around it.
Mike, you are ex-military and an ex-top cop as well. How much peril does Harry face when he's in the UK?
Well, as I say, in the sense that there are vicious criminals who would think, they've kidnapped the children, they can get money, some ransom money. And also, we know that there are people who do the most mad things because somebody's in the royal family, they're obsessed or whatever else. So there's always some kind of threat. Somebody tried to, remember Princess Anne, they tried to kidnap her in the 70s. So there's always these underlying threats to the royal family from obsessed people or dangerous gangs. So I don't think there's any particular threat at the moment, but it would make sense, I would say, if he's going to bring the children, to provide some armed guards.
Neil, the public, I think, will take none too kindly to the idea of subsidising Harry's security, given he left the royal family.
I think Mike is a very, very generous man. and I'm afraid there are a great many people, hand up here, I'm one of them, who thinks that he's made his bed, let him lie in it. And I'm sorry for the king, but if you take the logic of, there are, of course, lunatics, there always are, but there's very many people who can be victims of madness. And Prince Harry...
Including all celebrities.
Yes, absolutely. Politicians, other members of the royal family. It's about being high profile more than anything. And I don't believe that Harry either is entitled to nor deserves any special treatment. He chose to leave this country. He chose to leave the royal family, frankly waved two fingers at them and said, I'm going to go on and go off around the world with my lovely, beloved Meghan, and we'll simply use that background, the accidental bloodline, if you like, that he has. No one guaranteed that he was going to be born into it, and then he spat in the face of the background privileged background that he came on, and his constant whinging and whining. This is a man who the best thing that ever happened to him was going in the armed forces. He then had a purpose.
It was the making of him. Same as Andy, same as Andrew.
Yeah, and what happened when they came out of it, both of them absolutely felt that the world owed them a living. This incredible life they have had. What privilege, what joy they've had out of an accident of birth, and they feel hard done to. Well, I'm afraid, they, as I said, they've made their bed, let them lie in it.
How do you feel about paying taxes to pay for security of Prince Harry? Are you happy to bankroll Harry's security in the UK? Let me know your thoughts, 0344 499 1000. And Andy Burnham, we're discussing him this morning because he's going to be our next Prime Minister, most likely on the 20th of July, the day after the World Cup. Here is a voice note on the subject of Andy Burnham from Sarah.
Morning, Mark. Great show. Is Andy Burnham the answer? No, definitely not. I mean, lots of people say he's a nice bloke, but the fact of the matter is he should not be there. He should not just be able to be placed into this position of Prime Minister, because literally 2 weeks ago he wasn't even an MP. He's been parachuted in, he's been manipulated in. It isn't a democracy, this is a dictatorship. You will have this man as Prime Minister. And yes, 25,000 people voted him in Makerfield. Wonder how much of that was tactical voting, but, you know, at the big end of the day, 25,000 people have had a say as to who our next Prime Minister is, and that is disgusting. As for him potentially appointing Ed Miliband the Chancellor, God help us, but, you know, I think their reign will be fairly short-lived if that happens, hoping for a general election by the end of the year. Anyway, we'll see. I fear what's coming in the next few months, but I think we've just got to get on with it, really. At least the weather's nice. Thanks, Mark. Bye.
Sarah, thank you for your wonderful voice note. It was a tonic, and I thought you talked so much sense. Neil Wallace, your reaction?
I just thought that was so British. I just thought that's what it's about. You know, 5 minutes ago we're talking about some Somali lunatic who's accused of driving a car, people injured, attempted murder charges, so on and so forth. And you get this wonderful woman who calls into the show, and at the end of a very forensic and thoughtful, I thought so thoughtful analysis about Burnham, and she says, basically, but there we are, we've got to get on with it, at least the weather's got better. That is so British. I love it.
Most definitely, and it's the sort of spirit, the sentiment that makes this country great, and we must never lose it.
And we must never allow that to be dissipated and thrown away. That let's get on with it, because that is the essence of British. That's what made us the great country we are.
Keep calm and carry on. Folks, what do you think about this? Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? Your calls next, plus more from Mike Neville and Neil Wallace. Don't go anywhere, 7:21. This is Talk Breakfast.
Andy Burnham just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. Because if he's got...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:23, Talk Breakfast. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? Here's a voice note from Jay.
Morning, Mark. Fantastic show as always.
Thank you, Jay.
Britain and all that. Just want to point out a couple of things. First thing being that looks like allegedly that the Met Police are opening potential grooming gang cases back to 2010. I've heard the last couple of years Mr Sadiq Khan go, there's no such thing there in London. Completely blanket and deny it, show no sympathy whatsoever. So they're saying there could be up to 4,000 cases, which is what I've read. And I'd like to point out on Mr Burnham, he's been the mayor of Manchester and Greater Manchester, and they've got their own problems with the grooming gang scandal. So could this be something in the future that, as a potential PM, comes back to bite him? I don't know. I don't know all the ins and outs in it, just what I've heard, what I've read. And my sympathies go out to the people hit by the car yesterday in London. That looked awful.
It did indeed. Jay, you've covered a range of important topics there, and I definitely think there is a case to answer for the Mayor of Greater Manchester, now, of course, incoming Prime Minister Andy Burnham, when it comes to the grooming gangs, and similarly Mayor Khan in London, who has effectively gaslit the public about the problem in the capital. With me live in the studio, the former executive editor of the News of the World, Neil Wallace, and down the line, former Met Police Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. And Mike, it is worth pointing out that this grooming gangs scandal, well, there are many political elements to this story. These egregious crimes happened as a result not just of the local authority involved and the police turning a blind eye, but politicians too.
Yeah, the whole lot. And there's people who are guilty who've been given knighthoods and made dames and given all sorts of medals, who should now be held to account and should, if need be put in prison for failing in their duty. And we've always had the ridiculous situation that, you know, I think about a sixth of all crime is reported in London. So London accounts for a fifth or a sixth of all crime throughout the country, if not more. So if there are grooming gangs in all these other places, there's always going to be lots of grooming gangs in London. It just, the statistics work out. You know, if there's that many robberies in Cambridgeshire
Correct.
or even in Somerset Police, there'll be 5 or 6 times as many in London. That's just how crime works. And the fact that you have certain ethnic groups involved in this, and there's those ethnic groups in London, would make real sense that there is these gangs. And I think Sadiq Khan, when you watch the Tory leader press him at the London Assembly about how he sort of gaslit her and Susan Hall, and sort of basically denied he didn't even know what she was talking about, never mind denying that these are crimes that occurred. And I think it's right that the Met are going to look back into these, because the victims have suffered terribly, and the people responsible and those who covered it up should be held to account and, if need be, sent to prison for a long time.
Neil Wallace?
The thing that absolutely, Mike touches on it there, that drives me nuts about this is no one ever pays the price except the victim. I don't mean the criminals. You know, criminals obviously should pay the price, and they should pay a major price for those crimes. But what drives me nuts is you saw it in the Ockenden report this week about what happened in the maternity hospitals in Nottingham. Yeah. People who facilitated that, people who turned the blind eye, people who covered it up, people who decided that the votes of that community was more important than the safety of the young women in our midst. What happens to them? You saw in the Nottingham hospital scandal that one of the guys who was absolutely in charge for a huge amount of that time, he retired, he was allowed to retire, and then went off and did the same job, same sort of job elsewhere in the NHS.
That reminds me of the Roman Catholic Church moving priests around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's no one pays the price.
And six-figure salaries for those NHS managers who were responsible for having blood on their hands.
And, you know, as Mike will tell you, he will know officer classes who, within the police, have turned that blind eye. And, you know, so often this idea of multiculturalism is used as an excuse. And who are the continuing victims? That's what drives me nuts. These poor, poor girls they continue to pay the price in the sense of A, what happened to them, and B, that they're not being looked after now and believed, and somehow society is not trying to make it better. They're just thrown on the scrap heap.
They most definitely are. Neil, Mike, before I come to Cindy on Andy Burnham, you often on this show say that the entire establishment needs to just be swept away, and this is another good argument for that, isn't it?
Absolutely, this needs to be dealt with. And when you talk about Andy Burnham in particular, he epitomises all the issues, in my view. This is a man who joined a political party at 15. Who does that? You should be chasing girls or joining the army, I suppose, like that at 16.
Correct. Is that your life? Have you revealed a lot with that remark there, Mike?
Or you should be playing rugby or football or whatever else.
Sure.
But then he gets a job, advising Tessa Joe, a senior Labour minister. Then he's shipped into a safe sea. Then he cocks up the health service because he was the Minister of Health, as of course we know, when the scandal occurred. Then he goes into the wilderness and re-emerges as the Mayor of Manchester. Now he's been made the Prime Minister almost. And this man has never had a proper job. He's never had to, worry about how he's going to pay his employees. Never had to plan ahead. The money's always been there, and he portrays himself as this authentic northerner, but it's a facade in my view. The whole thing is an act. And it's just, and we're all going to pay for that act because this man has no experience of life and he suddenly finds himself in charge of the country. And I think it's going to be very bad for all of us.
Well, I worry, certainly. Cindy is in the United States and has called into the show. Good morning, Cindy. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Oh, good morning, Mark. I want to say these two gentlemen that you have on are taking my breath away. They have their finger on the pulse of the people, and you, Mark, are one of the best presenters I've seen in the world.
Oh, my goodness, Cindy. Well, that's very kind of you, and that means an awful lot of you, and I really appreciate the kind words. And it's interesting that you've called because although you're in the United States, it seems to be that you're concerned about what's happening in Britain, Cindy.
Absolutely, 100%. Andy Burnham is not what the country needs. What you need is a general election.
Yeah.
That's what you need. That is what you need. And I don't understand why you're not, I know you're not going to get that.
And Americans would not tolerate this, would they, Cindy? They wouldn't accept it if a president is in post for 2 years and then someone else is swooped in.
No, you'd probably, I hate to say it, but you'd probably see riots. Yeah, this wouldn't go down very well.
No, I mean, obviously, may God forbid, Cindy, if a US president were assassinated, then of course the way the Constitution works is the vice president would finish the... But that's not that's not what's happened here. This is a political assassination. And Cindy, someone even more left-wing that's going to come in Andy Burnham.
Oh, I mean, yeah, he's far worse than Starmer. Get ready. Yeah. Fasten your seatbelts for what's about to happen. That's what I have to say.
Cindy...
And it scares me.
How have these sorts of policies, these left-wing policies, worked out for America?
Okay, let me tell you firsthand. I had a ticket in December to come down to the United Kingdom by myself without my husband, and I just left the ticket. I paid for it and everything.
Wow.
I left it because I was too scared.
So you are
an
American you're an American that admires the UK, but you're now too scared to visit this country.
Yeah.
You don't feel safe as a visitor to the United Kingdom.
And it makes me sad because I had a ticket that I had paid for. That's expensive, but I let it go.
Cindy, that's really sad.
I let it go because
And what are your emotions around that? You bought the ticket and you're not going to go now. I mean, how do you feel?
It hurts because I want to see you. I remember I've been there before. I lived there for about 3 months in Surrey, in a little town called Frimley, and I've been told that I won't recognize the streets that I once saw. That I won't recognize it. How sad is that?
It's a shocker. Cindy, I'm so glad that you called. I wish we had longer, and I want to thank you for your kind words, and my heart goes out to you that you've purchased a ticket to the flight to the UK on your own without your husband, and you don't think it's safe now. Briefly, Neil Wallace, your reaction to that?
What a shocking story. Isn't that shocking? You know, that poor lady. I mean, she's obviously a little deluded about you, but that apart.
Yeah, she's clearly been on the cooking sherry.
Yeah. But seriously, what a thoughtful... Again, it's one of the great things about this show. We get these thoughtful, considered, concerned human beings. Right. The sort of interaction of your viewers with the show is a great tribute, I think.
Well, it is, and it's the special source of talk. Mike, I mean, where do you start with that one? Cindy, who loves the UK, won't come now because she doesn't feel safe here.
Well, it's a tragedy, isn't it? I've got great, support for the US. You can see I'm wearing my Kentucky Colonel's badge. I was made a Kentucky Colonel by the governor of the state for sort of good work in society. So I love the Americans. And I wish Cindy well. She obviously got a great assessment of the three of us. But it's a tragedy, isn't it, that somebody in a foreign nation would think that the United Kingdom, this lovely country, and I know Frimley very well. It's a lovely little place. That it's unsafe to come here. But we've got to keep working hard. Everybody who's on the centre right like us has got to keep working hard. We're up here at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning because we know, Mark, don't we? The left, they never sleep. The left never sleeps, and we've got to keep the battle going because they are determined to ruin this nation, and we've got to stop them. And because I said they're determined to do it, so we've got to be just as determined to stop them.
As Cindy has said, I am in the presence of greatness this morning. My thanks to two legends, Neil Wallace, former executive editor of the News of the World, one of the biggest names in journalism in this country, and Mike Neville, former Met Police Detective Chief Inspector, ex-military as well. Neil and Mike, thank you so much for your time. Look forward to your return to the Talk studio very shortly. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? Here's a voice note from Wayne.
Mark, so there's questions and answers that tend to stick with a premiership of a Prime Minister. Keir Starmer's Westminster or Davos, he chose Davos. That hung like a noose around his neck. Andy Burnham's one, I'm going to stick to the fiscal rules. What are the fiscal rules? Well, I haven't gone through all of it yet. That, I think, is going to be the question and answer that sums up his entire premiership as PM.
Is Prince Harry about to scrap his visit to the United Kingdom? I'll be asking a man that knows Harry intimately well, the former royal butler, next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, and a shocking headline in the Mail on Sunday. Dismay for the King, as Harry says he may not bring Meghan and the kids to London, having been refused armed royal protection. Let's get reaction from our royal correspondent, Rupert Bell. Good morning, Rupert.
Good morning, Mark.
Really good to see you. I wasn't expecting this news because it looked like the plan was that Harry would come to the UK next month with Meghan, Archie and Lily, that they would spend some of their time in private accommodation, potentially Althorpe, and the rest of the time at a royal residence. What's gone wrong?
Well, I assume Meghan's just gone and had a hissy fit. because she hasn't got what she wanted. I mean, I don't know. I'm speculating. But if this report is true, that she's decided last minute, well, it's not week after next, that they were supposed to be coming and, you know, everything seemed to be in order, then it beggars belief. It almost feels like they're trying to blackmail the royal family at all times to get what they want, whereas they're saying everything is fine. I am pretty sure the security arrangements that would be in place would be perfectly acceptable. But why, this is where I think a lot of people struggle to understand, why does he think that, you know, we are going to leave him exposed, which no one wants that to happen. But why does he think he has to have this extra level of protection? Yet in previous times, they've been to Colombia, they've been to Nigeria, they go around. But it seems like this row with the Home Office is causing problems. And, you know, Harry is probably saying, well, we need full protection. And I just think this will be yet more eye-rolling if this is the case from members of the royal family thinking, well, why? Why can't you just get on a plane and come and see the family? And I think that's what is so frustrating. If this report is true, that it's down to security arrangements, but it feels like, well, we're not going to come because you're not looking after us as we would like. Well, because they obviously think they should be getting the red carpet treatment.
It looks like the Sussexes are trying to strong-arm the UK government and indirectly the King to get the royal protection that they are requesting, that this is, like you've said, tantamount to blackmail.
Well, yeah, and this is frustrating. Now, Harry is supposed to be here for for the launch of the Invictus Games, which takes place next year in Birmingham. The NEC does launch it, and he's supposed to be doing various charity commitments to Wellchild and others as well, which he is closely associated with. Meghan was reportedly going to be at some of those things.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have probably seen the children. Where would they have stayed? Obviously, there's been reports, and it can only be these reports coming from the Sussex PR machine or somewhere that they were going to visit Diana's grave at Althorpe. You know, so the whole thing just seems to me is they're trying to control the PR narrative here. And this, I think, is the problem for the royal family. Everything with Harry and Meghan becomes a soap opera. And this is the latest instalment of the Sussex drama.
You're absolutely right. It's another unseemly public row involving the Duke of Sussex. It happened with Sentebale. It's happened since Brexit. There's a clear pattern here.
Absolutely, every time. It's never just straightforward. Just get on the plane, get over here. If you want to see your family, then just get on with it. If you want to go, you'll be perfectly secure in one of the royal household houses because they have a natural security blanket anyway.
Of course.
Yeah. So, you know, this is where I think people get frustrated with them. That it seems like she wants to be treated as numero uno, and Harry is doing his wife's bidding, it would seem, because, you know, of course he's quite right. I need to protect my family. No one, that's a perfectly normal human instinct. But there will be protection. The launch of Invictus will have a degree of protection wherever they go. So this is what I think we all get completely bewildered with, that Harry seems he is way beyond the sort of bounds of reason. And I think that's what's frustrating the public. And you almost want to go, well, if this is going, don't bother turning up. You know, I think there's almost, you get a sense that is what's out there. But again, if these reports are true, and there's obviously good reason to think that these might be, then it's more eye-rolling. And, you know, will we see them the week after next? Who knows what's going to happen? I think I would suggest the Home Office have more important things to worry about at the moment than trying to resolve Harry's security arrangements.
Most definitely. Well, this has lit the switchboard up, Rupert. Let's take a call, if we can, from Mary. Good morning, Mary. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Mark. I just wanted to say regarding the security for Prince Harry, in my opinion, there's so much tax being paid out on what I would consider to be rubbish. But to give Harry and his family security for a few days in England for when they come over, it's not going to be forever. I know he hasn't been the best or said the best things, Prince Harry, but for goodness sake, give them security, because would it not be terrible if they didn't have security and something dreadful happened?
Rupert, that's the other side of this. If, may God forbid, something happened to Harry, Archie, Lily or Meghan, there would be hell to pay. Is that a fair point?
But there will be some level of security anyway. What they want is the full bells and whistles. You know, the royal family are not naive. No one is suggesting that because he is a public figure, whatever has happened within the royal family, and he no longer being a working member, he is still a public figure and a member of the royal family. So they are fully aware that security is, you know, has to be done, and it's judged on case-by-case basis, and it's looked at. And the consensus must be that they feel that everything is in place to provide a level of security that will be befitting of his current status, so that he would not be exposed above and beyond to anything. And of course, Mary's right. No one wants anything to happen to him. It would be appalling. So you can be assured there will be some level of security, but not necessarily the full bells and whistles that perhaps Harry and Meghan feel they merit.
Rupert, how much of this is about security and how much of this is a flex from the Sussexes and a desire to have that elevated status when they're in the United Kingdom with the police outriders, the whistles, the helicopters, the cop cars?
Of course, Meghan loves all this. That's in her DNA. You see it wherever she goes. She wants the full sort of entourage around her to give her an element of self-importance. They've got to earn it now because they're no longer members of the royal family. Their situation is, precarious. Things aren't going as well as they would like. So the only thing they really have is their royal status in terms of just being members of the royal family, not working ones. As we say, she does like being the Duchess of Sussex and what that title means and to her and the status it affords her. So there's an element of that. But in many ways, this is supposed to be a private visit to see bringing the family over, maybe to see the king. I don't know where. He's been up in Scotland. So the whole thing is a sort of PR exercise once again from the Sussexes. But yes, I think they've got to have some level of security because no one's denying that. But if Ravik also feel that they don't need the full Monty, as it were, then they should just accept it and get on with what they're here to do.
Rupert, what does this tell us about where Harry's head is at the moment?
Well, I'm just not sure what he knows. Of course, he's involved with Invictus, which is an extremely important part of his life and has been, and he is very good with the veterans and ex-service people. That he does have a real understanding. But in terms of what else is he doing, he feels like a bit of a lost soul. So, and is, and in many ways, I don't say missing the royal connections, but in a way, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And, yes, there they were. And for Meghan, maybe it is greener for her in terms that she's able to do all her own business things that she's always wanted to do. But in terms of status, it's a very different feeling, and suddenly it's a cold place, I think, at times for Harry.
And Rupert, you are an elite-level journalist, and it's interesting that you've identified Meghan as perhaps the person that's really kicking off about this and may prevent Harry from taking the kids to the UK to meet their grandfather. That's an interesting interpretation, which is underreported, I think, but carries significant weight. What about the king? What do you think his emotions will be this morning when he reads more dramatic headlines about his son and when he faces the prospect of not seeing Archie and Lily?
Well, I think more eye-rolling and saying, just, what's going on? And I think that's part of the frustration for the whole royal family as a whole, that it becomes every time there seems to be an element of drama surrounding
It's a circus. You can't do business with these people, Rupert.
Well, no, and there lies the problem. You know, they seem to think everything's an episode of The Crown. You know, it's got to be box office, and it can't just come with, right, we're going to get on the plane, we're going to have a quiet visit, we're going to re-establish trust with the royal family. No, everything seems to be drip feeding out. You know, going to Althorp, going to see Diana's grave. You know, what's the motive behind that? You know, again, the sort of everything that is being played out is a sort of, you know, it's not just a straightforward, right, we're on a family holiday to go and see Harry's extended family and try and patch up a few problems. But at the moment, this just seems to be adding to the frustrations of everyone, because what the heck is going on? So what do we know? Make a decision, Harry and Meghan. Are you coming or are you not? Let's not make it a last-minute soap opera.
Rupert, you're so right. Get on the plane and get over yourself. Rupert, are you able to stay for a couple of minutes after the break? Because I want to talk about the World Cup.
I'm not going anywhere. For you, Mark, you have my undivided attention. Mrs. Bell may want to get me out in the garden to tend to my courgettes, but, you know, at the moment, I'll wait for you, Mark.
I've heard about your green fingers, Rupert. We'll come straight back to you. Here's a voice note from Delta, who's not happy with me. Take a listen.
Mark, secretly, you're a leftist. It's only because you want to talk a right-wing programme that you talk on the right issues of things. Now and again, you left your guard down and you left your views come across, just like net zero yesterday. You're not fooling me, Mark. You're not fooling me, mate. I bet you won't put this on the airwaves. Bye.
Delta's not happy. Am I a closet lefty? 0344 499 1000. We can have that conversation. I will say, Delta, that when I was 17, I won the drama prize at school. You're very welcome. And they gave you a book. And that was your gift, is you could choose a book. That was your prize for the drama prize. And I chose the biography of Margaret Thatcher because I was born in 1974. By 1979, we were the sick man of Europe, and I lived through her political, cultural and economic revolution. She achieved 3 landslide victories. She liberated the working class with right to buy, with the excellent policy of league tables for schools so that families could choose the best school. She transformed the economy so that by 1987, we were a global economic, military and cultural superpower. I really admired Margaret Thatcher, and so a lefty I am not. But if you think I am, give me a call. Is Mark Dolan a lefty? Secretly. 0344 499 1000. But Delta, I'm glad you left that message, because if that's your feeling, you should put it on the radio and on the telly. Lots more to come. This is Talk Breakfast.
Old news. On to the next. There we go. That was Andy Burnham. Just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP, and of course on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was 2 things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, fantastic news on the football. England beat Panama to win the group. So, Rupert Bell, is it coming home?
No, not on the evidence of last night. It was pedestrian. And Panama are obviously, they finished last in the group. You know, they've had struggled in their previous games. It wasn't a great watch, I can assure you. Eventually, they broke them down late into the second half. So, while, yes, there are sterner tests awaiting, and they've got 5 more matches if they want to win the World Cup. But on the evidence of the last 2, Thomas Tuchel's got some work to do. I was watching it last night, and I was thinking, why this Panama... No, okay, they never really threatened, but occasionally they just gave an element. Oh, watch out! In the defensively, we looked a bit weak. Going forward, I mean, we rely on Jude Bellingham has got to stay fit, because without him, then we really do look a bit clueless. So it's not coming home, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. This year's World Cup. So at the moment, they need to find a raise again. Perhaps they will now that we're into the knockout phase, because it's you can be going home pretty quickly if they don't. And playing the Democratic Republic of Congo in the next round, on paper that should be fine. But they struggled against Ghana. They will need to raise their game to another level if we are, as most football fans, hoping that the 50-year drought, or whatever it was, 60-year drought will come to an end since we last won the World Cup.
Well, of course, you're a very, very passionate Aston Villa supporter, and that iconic English club picked up a European trophy at the end of last season. We're hoping that England can demonstrate the same spirit. But what are the issues facing the team? Is it a problem of formation? Is it the manager's tactics? Is it the squad? Why haven't we demonstrated, that sort of rather powerful winning mentality that you would hope?
Well, I don't know. There was so much talk, and when we played the second half against Croatia, a handbrake came off, and that seems to me the issue. They got to play. Maybe they just struggle to break down teams that who then put sort of 10 behind the ball and make it very difficult. Against some of the better teams who have the self-belief to attack, it might leave more spaces for our attackers to benefit. The likes of Marcus Rashford, Jude Bellingham, Morgan Rogers, and Harry Kane, who got a rocket early on in the match from Thomas Tuchel yesterday. But he did score a goal with a very good header. But at the moment, when they play the other teams, the stronger teams, and we could be playing Brazil and Argentina if we get through our next match, then you can see that we're going to have to play with a bit more verve and purpose. But defensively, we look still a bit frail, and that could be our big Achilles heel. So it's not straightforward. Don't want to write off our chances, but fingers crossed that they can be unlocked and show the attacking intent that we know they're capable of, as they showed in that second half against Croatia.
Well, Rupert, let's just hope that we've started slowly and that our best is yet to come. Are there any teams that have really caught your eye that will be a threat in the next rounds?
Well, obviously France have been good. Spain, the usual suspects, Argentina, France and Spain have all looked as if they've got something about them. Obviously, even Norway, played a weakened team the other day with Haaland. They will be a force, but I think it's the usual suspects who we've got to be concerned about. Brazil haven't really, I don't think, hit the ground running. Yes, they beat Scotland 3-0, but I'm afraid for Scotland it was a sorry World Cup in the end. They're on their way home. They've lost their manager has resigned as a result of their failings to get out of the group stage. So for England, they know this is going to be a tough one to win. They've seriously got to get back to the drawing board and find their verve and their something that means that opposition defenders will be worried. But at the moment, England don't look like they're capable of winning it.
Rupert, I will let you to your garden. I know the fragrant Mrs. Bell likes you on your knees, so get digging and we'll catch up soon. Legendary broadcaster, of course, Talk's royal correspondent and a brilliant sports broadcaster at TalkSport as well, my good friend Rupert Bell. Your reaction to Harry wanting armed royal protection, you got to pay for it. What do you think about that? Lots more to come. This is Talk Breakfast.
The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Well, you know what? In the end, he did do the right thing, and there were some achievements, and he's an honourable man, and he cared about public service. Guys, that's not what happened just now. In the last half an hour, Keir Starmer resigned, and he resigned because he was pushed. Most of his issues, most of the things which have damned him from, let's face it, within days, within weeks of him becoming Prime Minister back in July 2024, or of his own making. They were things he chose to do, cutting the winter fuel allowance, damning everybody who wanted to have a public inquiry on the grooming gangs as jumping onto the far-right bandwagon, the two-tier policing after the Southport riots. This man brought it on himself. He was not a good Prime Minister.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. Because he's got, let's be honest. But look, I mean, I don't really want to make light of it, but I am cheesed off, Julia, because what we promised in opposition was competence, and it's been anything but. I'm embarrassed. I'm really, truly, honestly, I am embarrassed because I did think we would be competent. We've not been.
I've no idea whether there'll be a contest or a coronation. But what I do know is the British public have simply had enough of political parties chopping and changing their leaders at will. We vote for somebody in a general election to be our Prime Minister. We expect them to serve their term. And barring ill health or exceptional circumstances, what is going on here, frankly, is reminiscent of a banana republic that has totally devalued the very process of general elections and democracy. We at Reform demand a general election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 8. Get the kettle on, folks. We got work to do. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan. A busy 2 hours to come. Dolan's dispatch at 9 a.m. I'll be dealing with Andy Burnham in no uncertain terms. It might get me cancelled good. But breaking this morning, Burnham prepares for power with Ed Miliband, architect of Labour's net zero policies, tipped to become our Chancellor. Well, that's not good news if you ask the boss of Iceland, who says he will be a disaster if he gets into number 11. Meanwhile, Burnham loyalist Louise Haigh, she of the stolen mobile phone variety, well, she masterminded his Makerfield by-election victory. She wants to crank up taxes, hand billions to local mayors, and loosen the borrowing rules to fund Andy's socialist project, which begs the question, will Burnham bankrupt Britain? What do you think? Can we afford this man in number 10? Loosen the borrowing rules, right? More debt, more taxes, less growth. Meanwhile, a Somalian man mows down pedestrians in West London. Is this the price we pay for diversity? And on a positive note, is it coming home? England romped to victory against Panama after a shaky start. Talking of shaky starts, what about our new Prime Minister? He'll be in post on the 20th of July, most likely. Is he going to have a shaky start? Is he ready for power? Is he prepared? Do you rate Andy Burnham? My question to you this morning is a simple one. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Kira is taking your calls today, so book your place on the show. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? Are you optimistic about this guy? Can he save the country? Will he do a good job? Andy Burnham, yes or no? You tell me. 0344 499 1000, that is the phone number. You can share your views. No one gets cancelled, not on my watch. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. We do love those voice notes, by the way. Keep them coming. It's all about your opinions. OK, folks, let's get to work. And reacting to the big stories of the day, live in the studio, broadcaster and political strategist Peter Barnes. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Mark. How's it going?
I'm very well. Are you seeing a concerted effort in some quarters of the media to big up Andy Burnham?
Oh, yes, they're basically salivating over him again. This is Keir Starmer 2.0. I mean, at what point... you know, my old rule, isn't it, that anybody who the BBC likes usually ends up being a wrong one by the end of it. I mean, I look at Nicola Sturgeon, I look at the New Zealand Prime Minister, they all end up being catastrophic.
And half of the presenters they employ as well.
Well, one can possibly comment, but but no, I think that's it is very clear that, you know, they're doing the grown-ups are back in the room. You know, this was just a little blip. Let's all move on. I mean, Beth Rigby, I feel quite sorry for her, because her pride and joy, Keir Starmer he's had to resign. She looked positively devastated the entire time. It's like that woman who was in Tel Aviv who looked miserable that the war had ended. I thought it's just very typical of them, because they're trying so hard to push a narrative that does not exist. Because Andy Burnham is not ready for power. Nobody really ever is, but he is so far behind. I mean, he's clinging on to this thing called Manchesterism. The problem is, yes, Greater Manchester outstripped all of its other regional peers in terms of its economic growth. However, high housing costs linked with concentrated city centre growth, not outside growth, basically meant that if you had if you had a few quid, you did well out of Andy Burnham. If you didn't, you ended up worse. So yet again, income inequality, not Andy Burnham's strong point on this one. So
antisocial behaviour, drug addicts in the city centre.
Piccadilly Gardens should have been on the front of every newspaper. It is. I don't know if you remember the story of the drug called Spice. This is the one where basically they just end up being a zombie and they wander around and they get hit by the trams. It's a very dangerous place to be, actually, Piccadilly Gardens. That should have been front and centre on every newspaper, saying this is coming to a town near you, because that's what that guy allowed to happen. And unfortunately, I don't see any kind of real opposition in terms of to go against him in the leadership. So I think a coronation is now inevitable, which is very concerning, considering the fact we still don't know what his defence policy is, what his trade policy is. We don't know anything of that. Now, yes, I'm always one of these people where the Constitution says you don't have to have a general election. You were elected as an MP, not as a party member, all that kind of stuff. However, I do think that Andy needs to be a lot more clear and a lot more kind of upfront with the public about what he wants to do, how he's going to do it, how he's going to pay for it, and more importantly, it's the structural changes as well that I think we need to focus in on. So I look at the grooming gangs, for example. That is a huge undertaking in terms of the inquiries and making sure as well that anything that comes out of the inquiries is actually enforced.
Right.
That's a huge thing that he could actually make a lot of political hay with and actually do some good for the country. However, he seems a bit coy on the issue, which I find problematic. But yet again, it's every single issue. He is so far out of his depth, I think. I don't think he's realised just how bad of a state the country is actually in, because he's been protected in Manchester. He's been out of it, and I think that's a big problem.
At the risk of indulging in hyperbole, and I could never be accused of such a thing, Peter, is there a possibility that he'll be worse than Starmer? It's hard, isn't it?
I don't know.
Good luck with that.
Yes, because Starmer was woefully unprepared. I mean, there's the famous line, isn't it, that he got into power, turned to Sue Gray and said, "So what's the plan?" I mean, that's rather concerning.
I might jump into your answer, which is your answer. I shouldn't be appropriating it. I think he will be worse, and I'll tell you for why. He'll obviously be better at politics. He's a better communicator, and he's got amazing hair, but he's going to be more left-wing, and he'll be attached to policies that, wealth taxes, possible exit tax, loosening the borrowing rules. Well, these are horrible policies that even Keir Starmer, to his defence, resisted.
Very true. That's very true. He did have some saving graces, and his name was Morgan McSweeney, but, he was the one that rather kept him on the straight and narrow in terms of not being a lunatic. But my problem is Andy Burnham is already starting to signal that he will do a coalition. He's already started to talk about the Greens, already in conversations with the Lib Dems. He was going to speak at a Green Party event just about 3-4 months ago. And yes, this is why I think a general election is more likely, because he's already said, I'm your guy. He'll make all these big appeals to the left, and that's how he'll stay in power. Everyone keeps thinking that it's all about just the Labour Party. Andy Burnham is a he's a chameleon. He'll sit in whatever room and fit in very well. And I think that is why he's more dangerous, because he will do a deal with Polanski. He will talk to Ed Davey. He will talk to the SNP. He will try to get this rainbow coalition off the ground, and he's got the personality and the political acumen to do it. Keir Starmer could never do it. But, and Corbyn probably not, but I do think Andy Burnham, because he is such a chameleon, he's got different personalities depending on who he's talking to, I think he could actually do it. And that's why the right should be very terrified and start campaigning against him now. Literally, start your general election campaign now. Get the leafleting, get out on the streets, start knocking on doors, because if that coalition actually coalesces behind him, we have a bigger problem than just Andy Burnham and the Labour Party.
You are so right, and Andy Burnham is charismatic. He's a people person. He's a schmoozer.
Yes, he is.
And he's an excellent elite-level operator politically. Yeah. And I think you're right, because what are his objectives? Well, in my view, it's the desire to become Prime Minister and remain so. And if he goes to the country, let's say in October or early next year, I think you're right that he's already priced in a hung parliament.
Oh, yeah.
And I think his thought is, that's not a problem, because I can put together a political constituency that will contain the Greens, the SNP, and maybe even a couple of independents.
Yes, I do expect there to be quite a few independents.
Unfortunately for us that care about the country, that's a bigger political coalition than Nigel and Kemi.
Oh, well, yeah, without a doubt.
Going and having a beer.
Even if you want to throw in Restoring that, they're not even in the same level, they're not in the same league, really. No. But also, you have to remember that the Labour Party actual voter base is already a coalition of different partners. So you've got the traditional working class, you've got the professional class, you've got all these different bits that all kind of come together to back one single idea. I think then, if you put an operator in like Andy Burnham, who can talk to people, he is a smoozer, he's very good at that stuff, he can probably do a lot of damage at a general election, even on the polling numbers that we've got now. We're seeing what we call crossover, which is basically the Labour Party is now taking over from Reform because it's having its moment where it's struggling and it's lost 4 by-elections, so it's having its bit. It will get back on track eventually, but that's up to them. But if Andy Burnham strikes pretty quickly, catches Reform with its trousers down, the Tories aren't ready, and I think that is what they is. So you need to start looking, what are the Lib Dems doing, what are the Greens doing? If they're starting knocking on doors, get ready for a general election, because that means a deal has already been made.
Before I get to a voice note from Elaine, do you think it's conceivable that election could happen in the autumn of this year?
Yes, I do, actually, because I've always said that Andy Burnham at the moment does not have the Starmer, the stench.
I think that
he's got none of this.
Ferguson, she called him a clean skin, I think.
Yes, that's probably a better phrase. Well, I went stench, but she's got a better language than I've got. But
I think that's a worry, and that's an issue.
Also, you have the fact that the migration numbers now trend in Labour's favour. So net migration is down 48%, asylum applications is down 12%, deportations is up 7%, and boat arrivals is down 37%. Reform is losing the emergency aspect of the migrant crisis, which they need to really rally to kind of get the base behind, to say we need to do this now. Nigel's this kind of leave the ECH, all this kind of argument needs the emergency narrative. If Labour suddenly say, well, look, we might be chaos, but we've still been able to do this, I think they've got a bigger problem on their hands. But then we throw in cost of living, which the right is nowhere on. I think a general election is more likely than most people will admit.
And the Burnham bounce will be at its bounciest this autumn, and it will cease to be as bouncy by February next year, less bouncy in May, Then 28.
Yeah.
At which
Throw
point...
in October conference.
Yeah.
He's be the conquering hero. I saved the Labour Party. I beat reform.
Perfect platform, isn't it?
Perfect platform to announce your kind of manifesto pledges for a general election. Probably end of October, maybe Christmas.
Let's take a voice note from lovely Elaine.
Morning, Mark. Do I think Andy Burnham is the answer for Britain? No, I do not. I think he's a bushy hair, bushy eyebrows. He thinks he's a pop star. He's swearing on the oath. You look at him, he's grinning, much to say, I've made it. Well, I don't think he is the answer. Well, Mark, I'm off to Menorca on Wednesday for 2 weeks, and it'd be great to get out this country. At least I can live out there for 2 weeks, but still got to come back and get on with it. Have a good day, Mark. Bye for now.
Elaine, I don't want you to go. We're going to miss you. You are a superstar. Thank you for a brilliant voice note. And I think Elaine speaks for a nation there with her world-weary demeanour. This is somebody, Andy Burnham, he's going to stride in to number 10. No one voted for this guy. And, Peter, I know that you are a constitutional absolutist,
yes.
and as you should be. We have a system, a legal and political infrastructure which has served us well. But I'm sick and tired of being told that the British political system is not presidential, that you elect the party. Technically, yes. But
See, actually, you elect the individual. My thing is actually get rid of political parties entirely.
Well, that wouldn't be a bad shout. Yeah. In reality, even with the current system, actually it is quite presidential. I think it became presidential under Margaret Hilda Thatcher. I think she was the first UK president, and I think that most figures in number 10 have been a presidential-type figure ever since then.
Do you know why that is?
She ruled the government with an iron fist and the civil service.
Oh, yeah. Do you know why that is, though?
Why?
Television. Television changed everything in professional politics.
Bingo.
And, it made presentation more important than policy. The famous argument is always, if you listen to Nixon versus JFK, if you listen to Nixon on the radio, listen to that debate, Nixon won it on the radio, JFK won it on the TV. That changed everything. And this is why people, you might be a pair of eyelashes and a black T-shirt and all that kind of stuff. It works. It is very important. He'll have people that will dress him, the stylist. They'll make sure his hair is in the right place. That is the level that they go to within the number 10 operation, and it's so important because that stuff kind of smooths over the roughness. And my thing with Burnham, what makes him dangerous in terms of the backbenchers is they're not going to be in charge anymore. Burnham will be in charge because he's got the personal brand to be able to push through. He doesn't need the backbenchers as much as Starmer did. So therefore, they've kind of lost a little bit of power. But they'll say it as, well, we might save our seats with this guy.
Well, that's right. Yeah. And now Burnham is provably the guy that will be flying the plane until we reach the airport.
Yes.
There won't be another cull or another coup, as it were. Let's take another voice note. They are pouring in. Thank you, Matt and Alex, doing a brilliant job with the voice notes. Here's George.
Morning, Mark. George from Northampton here. If Burnham was so great, why was he a no-name politician when he was in Westminster before? He wasn't really noted for doing anything special apart from losing against Brown and everybody else. So is he going to save Britain? He's going to make it worse. Have a good evening, have a good morning, whatever time of day it is for you all.
George, you are a scholar, and I agree with every word of that. What do you think, folks? I need your help. Tell me about Andy Burnham. You have a head on your shoulders, you've got common sense, you have life experience. What do you make of this guy? Are you buying it? The Andy Burnham thing. Andy Burnham, yes or no? Will he be a good Prime Minister? Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? 0344 499 1000. Book your place on the show. It's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. Lots more to come. 8:18. This is Talk Breakfast.
Andy Burnham just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. Because if he's got...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A shocking headline on the front page of the Mail on Sunday. Dismay for the King as Harry says he may not bring Meghan and the kids back to the UK. It's our understanding that Harry has been refused armed royal protection whilst in Britain. It means that in July, next month, he may well come to the UK on his own, which means the King will not meet his grandchildren, hasn't seen them since 2022. Greg's in Bristol. Greg, your reaction? Good morning, Greg. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Mark.
Well, what do you make of this? Oh, well, thank you very much, Greg. Prince Harry, he may well not bring the wife and kids now. What do you think about that?
Right. It's his choice. My problem is, not to be too controversial, is that I've listened to all the controversies and the stories behind Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, and so I decided to watch the Netflix. And actually, I came away thinking, he's not being dealt a reasonable choice of things. My question to you, the elephant in the room, is how can a king marry his mistress and make her Queen Camilla when she's been the third person in the relationship all the way through the 90s?
I think it's a very fair point. I mean, it was an outrageous scandal at the time. It was a miserable experience for Diana, who told Panorama that there were 3 people in that marriage.
That's right.
It was very controversial.
I mean, it's not. In fact, it's not so controversial in that I've seen the devastation having an affair has on a family member for many, many years, mentally and physically. And although we're all tempted by the apple, the poison apple in the tree, so to speak, we're tempted by the excitement of the chase, etc. You have an affair, there are consequences, but there seem to be no consequences. Now you've got someone who is actually head of the church. I'm not a religious person. I'm not speaking from that point of view.
But what you feel, Greg, is that actually the King is in no position to take the moral high ground on any matter, really.
Quite. So that was the question I want to put for discussion, really. I mean, I think it's a shame he can't think if he's not safe. He probably will be safe, as you've already discussed. There are all residences you can live in. Things are just very awkward, and he's actually carrying a sort of, excuse the expression, a loaded gun. No, he and William have been very stoical about the relationship between their mother, Princess Diana, and now King Charles. And it's like she's been ignored. She's been pushed under the carpet, and I find it quite upsetting. So does my wife, that no one speaks about Diana enough. Does that make sense?
I do. I agree with you fully, Greg. No one talks up for Diana. No one defends her and what she went through. She married Charles for love. He, of course, was in love with Camilla at the same time. It was just a horrible love triangle. And ultimately, Diana was the victim, and then she lost her life in a Paris tunnel. The whole thing's a tragedy, and it's very sad. And I will say that King Charles, when he was the Prince of Wales, was a very unpopular and divisive figure for at least a decade. And it's quite amazing how he's rehabilitated himself. Greg, thanks for a great call. Best wishes to your missus as well. Peter Barnes, nice to have a break from politics.
Just a tad, yes. Yeah.
Well, what about Harry? I mean, many of people calling this cakeism, that he wanted to be a private individual, to have a commercial life, make money. That now he wants armed royal cops in the UK. What say you?
To be fair, Prince Harry must be protected. He is still Prince Harry. He still is who he is. He's one of the most recognisable people on the planet. Of course he is. So therefore, a level of protection must be there. The question is, does the threat justify armed security? The security apparatus of this country say, no, it doesn't. That's also been upheld by multiple courts, say that this approach is reasonable. It's also done on a case-by-case basis, so it's not like a permanent thing. This has all been, well, Harry's taken it to court, and this is what the outcome is. It does seem to me a little bit of, he's just throwing his toys out of the pram at the last minute, and I have to admit, I'm getting a bit tired of that. Everything I know about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is entirely involuntary. It's not my kind of politics. I have no interest in them at all. But I will say the entitlement is very stark. And yes, what happened to their mother was horrific. The BBC still, in my opinion, put that woman in the grave. But I do think they have to deal with this in a much better way than being on the pub and doing it in the headlines and having this public spat all the time and dragging the monarchy into it. The monarchy is not a toy. It is a very important institution, and Harry is playing with it because he's not getting enough attention. That has to stop, because once the monarchy falls, and I think the House of Windsor is clinging on by the skin of its teeth most of the time, I do think we're in for a lot of trouble, because if you think it's bad now, just imagine if it's President Tony Blair or that kind of thing. You know, the royal family's not perfect, but they're better than many alternatives.
Well, if we lose the monarchy, you will see the further chipping away at the identity of this country.
There won't be an identity of the country. That's the point. The royal family is the identity of the nation. They are supposed to be above politics. They're Walter Bagot, the English constitutionalist, said that they are the wallpaper over the cracks of Britain. And that's what they are. They're there to make us all look nice, and, you know, they do the waving and all that kind of stuff. I always joke around that actually the royal family are for other people, not the British, realistically, because we don't really care about them. We like to complain about them, but everybody else is obsessed with them.
Most definitely.
Yeah, just for me, it seems to be of a second child who didn't really find a job, did have one that he liked. His marriage doesn't seem to be going wonderfully, and therefore is using the toys and the apparatus around him, and there's enough people indulging him in this. That's a bigger problem.
Well, what a fascinating assessment. Here's a voice note on that very subject from Adi. Let's take a voice note if we can from Adi. Take a listen to this.
Learned guests, this is Adrian from East Sussex. I'm sure it's going to be a great show. I don't want to pay for Harry's security. And now let me be totally honest, from having been a very staunch royalist, I don't want to have any of the royal family on my bill whatsoever. The king can't even stand up and defend the faith. He was actually, his whole existence has been based that the royal family has been selected by God and everything else, and that is a Christian God, not all faiths. He can't even support the Church of England. And as far as I'm concerned, they can all damn well go. And please, people, don't tell me they bring so much money into the country. The palaces do. The royal family don't. We don't need anything like this lot. They can't even sort out a rogue government, and he just waffles on constantly. He lies. He lied on his wedding vows. He had affairs. I want him gone. He probably won't actually use this, but anyway, worth a try. Bye.
Listen, if you've got a view, and as long as you're not libelling someone or breaking the law, I'm going to put it on the show. And Adi, thank you for that fascinating set of opinions that you've laid out there. Andy Burnham, I need your help with this, folks. Yes or no? Andy Burnham, is he the answer to Britain's problems? Peter is in Sussex. Good morning, Peter. You're live with the political strategist, Peter Barnes.
Morning, Peter and Mark. Yeah, I was listening to your, introduction about Burnham. And I've done a bit of digging on the internet, and all I can say is, who is this guy? You know, he was a failed politician, because remember, he was the health secretary when some of these hospitals went into debt because of the insurance thing he put on them.
Yeah.
And I think some of them are still paying for that debt. And also, he lost 2 elections against 2 what I call mediocre opposition. But more to the point is, there's something going on with the backbenchers, I feel, because I think they've done a deal with him for whatever reason. He hasn't said nothing about anything. And you've got Davey spouting all this thing against anti-Farage and anti-Tory stuff. So I just think he's a dangerous man, much more dangerous than Starmer. Starmer was a fool and an imbecile, but Burnham is a calculated fool, and I just think this country is in peril if we don't stop him. That's all I can say, really.
Well, Peter, I think it's I'm really glad that you've called the show because I need everyone's help with this about Andy Burnham. And I think that you raise concerns shared by many, Peter. Well, what do you think about this, Peter Barnes?
I think you're right. I always say that he was never put under any pressure when he was Greater Manchester Mayor. The Manchester Evening News is basically his best friend, so he was never really scrutinised, which is why I say there are a lot of mayors in the country at the moment. Maybe we should have a look around the country about what's actually happening. We do seem to have a terrible Westminster focus. Obviously, it's very important, but these people hold real power. They have a lot of money, big budgets, and they seem to be very terrible at it. These people then get to hop, skip, and a jump back into Parliament, and they just seem to ride, everybody thinks they're all wonderful and all the rest of it. I do think we have to start looking at the mayors around the nation about what they're actually doing, because you've got the Claire Ward in the East Midlands, for example. She's a Labour one. She's terrible, but there's literally loads of them. We obviously obsess over Sadiq Khan, but Andy Burnham basically got a free ride, I think, most of his 9 years as Greater Manchester Mayor. It is very concerning, because I do think you're right. Starmer was always reliably an idiot. So if he had a choice of a good thing and a bad thing, he'd always choose the bad thing. You knew exactly what he was going to do because he was terrible at the job. Andy Burnham has a better political acumen. So he might pick a very left-wing thing, but he can sell it. That's what makes him dangerous. He's a good seller. Like we said, he's a schmoozer, he's a people person. He's got the T-shirt and the eyelashes and all this narrative. Because if you remember, on his Twitter account, he basically posted after Kemi had a go at him saying it's actually a navy blue T-shirt. It went viral. It went everywhere. That is a politician that knows how to play the game. And that's what we have to be very concerned about, because, the right isn't always very good at social media. We tend to get in a lot of trouble over social media, certain political parties anyway. So, yeah, I would be scared of Burnham, not in terms of him making the country any worse. I don't think we really could be in a worse position than we're in right now, if we're being honest. We have no money, we don't have borders, we don't have law and order, and, a guy was nearly beheaded in Northern Ireland. So I think at what point do we say maybe we've reached peak?
And also, I use this show for the public good.
Yeah.
I have full control. That's the magic of talk, is that we don't have management saying, say this, say that. And that's why Alex and I, who's brilliant to have him back, by the way, executive producer of the show, of course, a former legend of the Julia Hartley-Brewer Breakfast Show, he's brought his magic today. And we decided at 8 a.m, at 7 a.m, to lead on the story of Ealing and a Somalian man who mows down British citizens. Underreported, because it's all about Harry Kane and the World Cup.
Oh, yeah.
But this is what we have to do in the national interest, is have these conversations, and I will go back to that story very shortly. That's a developing story. An individual of Somalian descent who has used his vehicle as a weapon. It doesn't appear to be terror-related, but it is attempted murder. He's been arrested. 5 people mown down in the leafy, plush, middle-class suburb of Ealing. What we mustn't do, Peter, is normalise these crimes.
Oh, yes. I go back to the train stabbing. Do you remember?
I do, in Cambridgeshire.
In Cambridgeshire.
About a year ago.
I found it very concerning how everybody just kind of went on with the day.
Shrugged their shoulders.
Yeah. I find that very disturbing about how used to these stories we're becoming. This is why the migrant crisis, we have to keep talking about it to remind people of the horror that is actually inflicted. We have to keep it in people's minds because, people will just say, oh, it's just another government failure kind of thing. We have to remind people what is actually happening up and down the nation, and it is vital that people are aware of what's going on. And you're right that this has been knocked off. This story is horrific of the Somalian van incident. But again, it's the World Cup. At some point the country has to get its priorities in order. For the World Cup is, people can like football and all the rest of it, but when 5 people are mowed down by a van, that should be on the front cover of a newspaper, not Harry Kane, who I'm sure is a very nice guy or whatever, but 5 people, that's the biggest story we should be talking about.
Machete attacks, people having acid thrown in their faces.
Well, we're now one of Europe's highest acid attack nation.
Right.
How is that a thing?
Correct. And this is not just a symptom of normal law and order issues. It's to do with our immigration policy. The end. Before you go, Peter, so lovely to have you in the studio. what's going on over at Reform. Something's up.
Oh, now we're going to get into trouble, aren't we?
Something's up. Because David Bull, who I'm a big fan of, former host of this show, of course, and former chairman of the party, has said that Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, he needs to have a holiday. He should have a break. Now, of course, you know, I think you work too hard and probably deserve a holiday too, but it's a strange thing to say in an interview, and I can't imagine that it's gone down well with the boss.
Yeah, do you know what the 4 words that took out Margaret Thatcher were? Doesn't she look tired?
Ooh.
That was said by Tory backbenchers in the Carlton Club. It was, you know, in the bars of Westminster, to say maybe she's not right for the office. That, what David Bull says, has all the markers of what was known as the Geoffrey Howe comment. Basically, doesn't she look tired? And, you know, once
so what's going on?
Basically, when you've lost 4 by-elections, your national equivalent vote share is going backwards. You're having candidate problems. You've got the £5 million situation that was handled terribly. I think a lot of people are starting to question, is Nigel the right guy? And then, because you've had Zia Youssef and Jenrick having a pop at each other over major policy on X and all the rest of it, the party discipline is slipping. This is the bit where usually when the Tories fall apart. If this happens with Reform and, you know, they do something silly, like try to oust Nigel or something, I don't know if Reform makes it to the next general election.
No chance, no chance. Well, I spent half a day with Nigel and you were
it's a very, very good interview.
You know, you were very kind about that interview. It's on YouTube, the Daily Express channel, Daily Expresso, and I appreciate that's high approbation from your good self. But he looked very happy. He did not look tired at all. He was not in any way exhausted or overstretched. And I think that actually David Bull said, you know, there's so much more to the party than Nigel. Actually, no, it's the Nigel show.
Yeah, which is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. But
this is it. But, you know, if you ask the public, the people that support the project, it's all about Nigel, and I don't think they should apologise for that. And I think it's odd that one of their team is diluting that message.
I don't think it's just one. I think you've got Matt Goodwin saying that there are the original reformers and the Tory reformers. You say that's a split. You know,
Zia hates the Tories, with a vengeance.
Yeah, and then we found out just the other day on Question Time that he'd been knocked back as being a candidate. So what's going on with that situation? Why wouldn't you want him front and centre? What's the issue there? Again, there might actually be nothing. And Dan Hodges has got an article about this in the Mail. But I will say, sometimes just the whiff of something going wrong is enough to bring down very powerful people.
Yikes.
Like I say, 4 words brought down Margaret Thatcher.
He's coming in hot. Peter, we couldn't do the show without you. I'm not sure we could do Talk without you. TV talk host as well, regular host on this network, as well as political strategist, broadcaster and commentator. Thank you, Peter. Let's play out with a voice note on Andy Burnham from Ven.
I'm from sunny Bulgaria in sunny beach, normally in Erdington. Got away from this hellhole of a country for a week. Andy Burnham, is he the answer? If he's the answer, what is the question? And let me just say this, it's like spraying Febreze on a dog turd. Keep up the good work, Marky. Have a great weekend.
Listen, thank you, Ven. The magic of this show, the genius of this show, is you. Your voice notes, your text messages, your calls, and having your company, listening on the radio and watching on the telly. Dolan's Dispatch is coming in just 20 minutes' time. Lots more to get through. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. It's 8:39, and I've got fantastic news for Andy Burnham. Have you heard about this? Alex Farrell, the returning hero at Talk. This is huge news. Not making this up. Andy Burnham has secured his biggest endorsement so far. And it is former BBC newsreader Hugh Edwards. You heard me right. Whatever happened to him? Hugh Edwards now has a Substack column and backs Burnham for number 10. What a vote of confidence that is. Let's get reaction from a true legend of the BBC, ex-BBC radio star Alex Dyke. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Mark.
Oh, well, I tell you what, that's going to definitely warm the cockles of Andy Burnham's heart, isn't it? Getting the backing of Hugh Edwards. Did you see that?
I did. I mean, they say there's no such thing as bad publicity, but you don't really want to be hanging around in the same circles or having an endorsement from someone like that, did you? And that's one of the two stories I'd like to talk to you about today, Mark. Just briefly, the Hugh Edwards blog, and also the pious attitude of the BBC over the recent heatwave.
Oh, well, I know. We'll come to that, and I'm so looking forward to you sinking your teeth into that. So, Alex, Hugh Edwards, he's got something called a Substack blog. Can you explain, for those that are not au fait with those things, what exactly that is?
No, this word Substack, I thought, what is it? It's a great word, and he's got a blog, and what he wants to do is bring awareness and commentary and analysis to current affairs, which, of course, he was very, very good at doing. But, Hugh, nobody wants a blog from you. You are poison, and nobody wants it. What might help his cause, Mark, is if he went into prisons and he visited with prisoners and told them how he had turned his life around after the disgrace he brought on himself and his family. However, he might not be there yet. But I think, Mark, what this does do is it begs a very, very important question in Britain, something that none of us are talking about, and that is, can you ever, as a sex offender, come back from it? Particularly in the media. Is it right to write off people's whole lives and careers, or should we let them come back? Now, I'm all for not letting them come back. And I can only imagine, if you're Hugh Edwards and you go to a restaurant, are you always going to be thinking, someone spat in my soup? And I would like to, maybe at greater length with you one day, Mark, discuss that. Is there any way back for a sex offender in the media, in public office, or not? I don't think there should be, but maybe we shouldn't write off people's lives forever.
Well, the guy is a convicted paedophile, so I think good luck with that. You know, this is a guy that was in possession of some of the worst categories of materials that the police had seen. This was the nature of it. This was not some foolhardy, accidentally, I Googled this and, you know, tried to switch it off my computer. Crimes were committed, massive question mark about his behaviour whilst at the corporation as well. And, Alex, I wonder whether someone like Hugh Edwards, you know, was it easier for him to continue with impunity as a big star at the corporation? Are the likes of Hugh Edwards treated differently to the rest of us?
Well, there were stories in the press and there were stories behind the scenes in the BBC that he was a star, he was important, leave him alone. But no one, Mark, no one is above this. I'm of that old-fashioned opinion that paedophiles, sex offenders are scum of the earth. Right? And I don't want them around me, my family, or anyone else.
Yeah.
But celebrity, the trouble is these people, whether it's Jimmy Savile or Hugh Edwards or anybody in between, they start believing their own publicity and they start believing that they are untouchable. And like some murderers and some other criminals, I wonder if there's a little part of them that wants to get caught. And so they start getting careless, but maybe slightly on purpose, because they can't contain this monster inside them.
I know, and I think that's exactly right. Well, look, I tell you something, Andy Burnham, he won't be publicising the support of Hugh Edwards. We're having a big conversation this morning on the subject of politics, the small matter of a new Prime Minister. Do you feel that the BBC are going to start love-bombing Andy Burnham like he's the second coming, like he walks on water? Do you anticipate the corporation will be all in on Burnham?
Well, I'm not sure that it would be that obvious to it.
Right.
As far as the love bombing's concerned, I don't think he's going to get more exposure than other politicians, apart from he's big news at the moment, and this is a big national story. But we've seen the way that they treat Nigel Farage. We've seen the way they talk to him. We've seen the way they are about Donald Trump, with loaded sentences, with negative vibes and negative words and expressions in them. Andy Burnham's not going to get any of that, Mark. The BBC, I don't know whether the BBC, the people inside the BBC can see how left they are. I think a lot of them just don't see it.
And I think that is definitely an issue. Meanwhile, we've enjoyed something of a heat wave, but establishment media networks have completely lost their minds over it.
Yes. Now, I was watching you earlier saying that you remember the 70s and you were a young lad in the 70s and you can remember British life in the 70s. So can I. And I can remember, and a lot of people have forgotten this, summer 1975 was an absolute corker. It was eclipsed by the long, hot summer of 76. So before I came on air this morning with you, Mark, I looked up some big, long, hot summers. 1959, which of course I don't remember. 1969, I was very small. Also, there was another one in the mid-60s, 1964. There was 1989, and the other two that I've mentioned, 75, 76, oh, and 1983 was a blisterer. Nobody in those summers was talking about global warming. They were just hot summers. And after the summer of 1976, Mark, it rained and rained and rained for a couple of months. I remember because my dad had a building company and he would come home and say to my mum, I'm paying 14 guys to sit in a tea hut day after day after day. We can't dig the foundations. It's so wet. Nobody was talking about global warming there. It was just part of life, like the big freeze from the winter of 1963. And I watched this report from Brighton Beach. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday morning. And they had a reporter on Brighton Beach. They also had someone in Paris. Now, in Paris last week, Mark, it was 40 Celsius. Here in Britain, it was 32. And they had this reporter with this pious attitude about the beach. And she was saying, I've seen, and I'm not over dramatising this, I've seen children taking lilos into the sea. This is a no-no, right? I'm thinking, what kid has not gone to the beach and their parents have not brought them a lilo or a rubber dinghy or something like that? We know there can be dangers with lilos on beaches, but it was... I don't mind, Mark, people saying don't leave hot dogs in cars, because that's an easy mistake for some people to make. I don't mind slap on the sunscreen, but every time it's firework night, the 5th of November, Halloween, or the sun comes out, the BBC are just lording it over us all, thinking we're all stupid.
Well, I think that is exactly it. And I feel that that's what a lot of establishment media do now, is they treat us like children. And that's why there are so many broadcasters online with podcasts and all the rest of it who are being taken more seriously than people on the BBC and ITV.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the BBC. This does happen at Channel 4 and it does happen on ITV, but it's much, much more likely to happen at a more extreme level on the BBC, where they've gone back to these days of Lord Reith, where we're not going to give you what you want, we're going to give you what we think you should have. And that's what really, really rattles my cage.
Well, I think that is exactly right. That's the big story, isn't it? What about Prince Harry? I want to get your thoughts on this because quite a shocking headline in today's Mail on Sunday. Dismay for the King as Harry says he may not bring Meghan and the kids to the UK. Harry cast doubt on family visit over security concerns. So we've had all of this rigmarole about how they're coming to the UK. Now they're not. Do you think that he deserves armed royal security when he's in the UK?
I think he gave up those rights when he published his book, Spare. And when you think of all that nasty, bitter, spiteful content in that book, I think, how can you expect it? Now, Harry and Meghan have made a lot of money with Netflix. OK, the shows flopped, but they had a very nice advance on the shows, those TV programs.
Yeah.
He made a lot of money out of Spare. Surely, with the money he's getting in from the royal purse, and there is still some coming in from that, surely he can afford some security guys, because if he was a huge pop star, like when, you know, Taylor Swift, for example, she has her own security. So if she and Harry Styles can afford it, why can't he? I think this is just them trying to grab headlines, Mark. And the other thing is, nobody cares whether they're here. You know, Daphne, who's going to go out and water her flower beds in a minute, doesn't care. Dave, who's out going to the supermarket to get milk for the kids' cereal this morning, he doesn't care. We're all too busy living our lives. This is just some kind of reality TV soap opera.
I don't know about you, but I'm a big fan of Daphne's flower beds. Alex Dyke, brilliant to have you on the show. We'll catch up very soon. BBC radio legend Alex Dyke, who I've got to say is boiling with rage, and it's not only the temperature that's provoking it. Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. I'll be dealing with Andy Burnham in no uncertain terms. But next up, your calls. Is Burnham the answer for Britain?
Andy Burnham just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. If he's got...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? Herbie is in Harrow. Good morning, Herbie.
Good morning, Mark. Of course he's not the man for Britain. Look, the people wake up and smell the coffee. Just have a look at the past administration of the Labour Party and see what they left us with. I mean, so you've got the front benchers there, all millionaires, while we struggle to pay our bills, they're living a life of luxury. Why and how? How can that be? And you want to put them back into power again? God almighty, what's wrong, people? Wake up, wake up. You've got
Herbie, is there a danger that we underestimate Andy Burnham and that he's going to be smart, where he's pretending to be left-wing to keep the membership and the backbenchers happy, and when he gets into office, he'll do the right thing for Britain? Is there any possibility of that?
Oh, Mark, look, he's a very, very devious man. I mean, he's very secretive, and I don't think he's going to let everything know before he starts to set out his agenda. I think we're going to pay a very heavy price, and if he wants to go to bed with the Greens and the Liberals, it just goes to show he hasn't got the power to hold the party together himself. If you're going to vote for Labour, vote for Labour. You're not voting for Liberals and Greens or anybody else. So that's it.
You're right, and just to interrupt you, Herbie, if he does a deal with the Greens, well, then he's got no morals and no principles, because there are many anti-Semites in that party and there are many communists in that party. I think that the Green Party, led by Captain Cleavage himself, Zach Polanski, is a dangerous party.
Yeah, exactly, Mark. And I mean to say, we're going to pay a very heavy price. The whole country at the moment is in complete disarray. Nobody needs to know what's going on, where we're going, what we're heading for. I know we're heading for disaster, but how much are the people going to pay for this mistake yet again? We keep putting these administrators back in, and they do not do anything for the country as a whole, but they do everything for themselves and nothing else.
Herbie, brilliant call. I wish we had longer. Have an excellent Sunday, Herbie. We'll speak soon. Joan's in Sunderland. Good morning, Joan.
Hello.
Joan, lovely to have you back. I need your help with this, because you've got life experience, you've got a head on your shoulders, you've got a gut instinct, you've got common sense. Andy Burnham, do you like the guy?
No, and I can't understand how we have allowed the man from nowhere, who wasn't even a politician until the 18th of June, pull off a bloodless coup using the people of Makerfield to get yourself into number 10 Downing Street. We have no idea what he stands for at all. Allegedly, he's one of these people who doesn't know what a woman is. We haven't got the bloody time to listen to people who don't know what a woman is. We've got more pressing things to do. And I can assume, well, I can almost guarantee that open borders, immigration, net zero, all alike of that will be nothing in his thing. These are important to us. The majority of people, I believe I can speak for, we do not want to join the EU again. We do not want open borders. We are sick of being the dustbin of the world. We want some military strength. No wonder President Trump has said no more is the US picking up the tab for all of these European nations. For too long, they've had to do it. We need this. And if Burnham is going to give the union leaders their pound of flesh, just remind them there's something coming down the road that people need to think about. AI. Jobs are going to be lost all over the place. And this country needs a direction. It needs to put Britain first. British people are sick of being last in the queue, first to pick up the bill, and by British people they come in all colours. And we are just about fed up of these politicians who want a job and they think, oh, I've been put on this earth to be Prime Minister of this country. No, you bloody haven't. And I'm sick of people like that. And it's about time we woke up, smelt the coffee, and put these people in their place.
Joan, what a devastating and powerful call. I'm so grateful that you made it. What do you think about this, folks? Is Burnham the answer for Britain? Well, that's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch in just a moment, but it's all about your opinions. 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, Prince Harry may cancel his trip to the United Kingdom with Meghan, Archie and Lily because he's been told by the UK government he will not have armed royal taxpayer-funded protection. What is your reaction? Does he have a right to armed cops in this country? Are you happy to pay for his security? Let me know your thoughts on that. Plus, we'll bring you more on this shocking, outrageous story in Ealing in West London. Yesterday afternoon, a Somalian man mows down 5 members of the public. Is this the price we now pay for diversity? It's all about your opinions. Dolan's Dispatch and politics legend Edwina Currie are next.
The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Well, you know what? In the end, he did do the right thing, and there were some achievements, and he's an honourable man, and he cared about public service. Guys, that's not what happened just now. In the last half an hour, Keir Starmer resigned, and he resigned because he was pushed. Most of his issues, most of the things which have damned him from, let's face it, within days, within weeks of him becoming Prime Minister back in July 2024, or of his own making. They were things he chose to do, cutting the winter fuel allowance, damning everybody who wanted to have a public inquiry on the grooming gangs as jumping onto the far-right bandwagon, the two-tier policing after the Southport riots. This man brought it on himself. He was not a good Prime Minister.
There was 2 things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. If he's got, let's be honest. But look, I mean, I don't really want to make light of it, but I am cheesed off, Julia, because what we promised in opposition was competence, and it's been anything but. I'm embarrassed. I'm really, truly, honestly, I am embarrassed, because I did think we would be competent. We've not been.
I've no idea whether there'll be a contest or a coronation. But what I do know is the British public have simply had enough of political parties chopping and changing their leaders at will. We vote for somebody in a general election to be our Prime Minister. We expect them to serve their term. And barring ill health or exceptional circumstances, what is going on here, frankly, is reminiscent of a banana republic that has totally devalued the very process of general elections and democracy. We at Reform demand a general election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Minutes past 9, top of the morning. Happy Sunday, one and all. Mark Dolan, Talk Breakfast. And breaking this morning, Andy Burnham prepares for power with Ed Miliband, architect of Labour's net zero policies, hotly tipped now to become our next Chancellor. Meanwhile, Burnham loyalist Louise Haigh, who masterminded his Makerfield by-election victory, wants to crank up taxes, hand billions to local mayors and loosen the borrowing rules to fund Andy's socialist project, which begs the question, will Burnham bankrupt Britain? A reported story, but we're going to cover it on Talk Breakfast. A Somalian man mows down pedestrians in West London. Is this the price we now pay for diversity? And why aren't establishment media talking about it? And is it coming home? England romped to victory against Panama after a shaky start. And what about our new Prime Minister? Is he going to have a shaky start? My question to you this morning is a very simple one. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? I need your help. Andy Burnham, yes or no? Are you buying it? So much to get through. Delighted to say that Louis is in the gallery now, directing our TV output. Kira is taking your calls, 03444991000. The brilliant Matt is pressing the buttons. He's our lead engineer. And a hero returns. Alex Farrell, icon of talk, former executive producer of the Julia Hartley-Brewer Breakfast Show. Remember that classic? Well, he's back in the hot seat. So much to get through, folks. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? As the saying goes, let's talk. And as always, every Friday, Saturday and Sunday at 9:05, it is time for Dolan's Dispatch. Different doctor, same medicine, and the patient still dying. Andy Burnham waltzes into Downing Street, the best dressed but least prepared Prime Minister in our history. Now, call him what you like. Man at M&S, British politics' answer to a Disney prince. He may have a handsome face, but his politics are ugly. Two of the most influential figures in his team are Miata Fambulla, a Labour MP and economist whose left-wing ideas for the country would have Leon Trotsky blushing. Meanwhile, self-confessed fraudster Louise Haigh, who had to leave the government amid the scandal of a stolen mobile phone, is to be the chief architect of this new administration, with talk of a land tax, with talk of a wealth tax, a possible exit tax. So even if you're fleeing the country, you'll still get done. Talk of more capital gains taxes, higher income taxes, further stealth taxes. Do you see the pattern that is emerging here? You've got Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, who is arguably the best minister in the government, now softening her position on immigration with a new scheme to settle thousands more refugees. And with a minister working under her in Mike Tapp, pushing to dilute Shabana Mahmood's tough reforms on indefinite leave to remain. And then there is Ed Miliband, a dyed-in-the-wool socialist who is now being hotly tipped to be our next Chancellor of the Exchequer. Let me tell you that if this guy gets the top job, his damage to the economy will be so severe, he'll make Rachel Reeves look like a financial wizard. He'll be Britain's first net zero Chancellor, with a policy that will effectively de-industrialise the country and see the squandering of further borrowed billions on the doomed experiment of green renewables. Now, don't get me wrong, solar panels and windmills, they're fine as part of an energy mix. But for a growing industrialised economy with any hope of cheap energy, which is the basis of a successful manufacturing industry, it's a disaster. So from where I'm standing right now, looking at this incoming administration, right, this guy that walks on water, the second coming for this country, Andy Burnham, all I can see is open borders, more debt, anemic growth, unemployment, inflation, economic quicksand, a race to the bottom. And there's a worry for our democracy too, Alex Farrell. I'm worried about our democracy. You got involved in a bit of local democracy for a while, didn't you? You're a Democrat and a patriot. I'm a bit worried about our democracy because Burnham, who has no mandate for power, wants to shift the country drastically leftwards, which no one voted for, and he wants to devolve further powers to the regions and hand money to local mayors. I think that's a concern because in the 1980s, the local authorities had extraordinary power. And Mrs. Thatcher had to dismantle all of that because they were inefficient, profligate, useless, unaccountable. She brought it back into Westminster, and after that, the country prospered. So it doesn't matter how handsome Andy Burnham is or what aftershave he wears. It doesn't matter how charming or great a speechmaker he happens to be. It doesn't matter that he's got a good line in Suits. It doesn't matter that he's nailed the difficult, smart, casual look of the middle-aged man. Forget about it. Ultimately, this is a guy that's wedded to the failed ideology of socialism, which I hate to tell you is a grim, bleak economic and political ideology that always ends in tears. It just doesn't work. Andy Burnham's arrival in number 10 will be a better presented, more polished version of the same thing, only more extreme and more damaging. I'm afraid to say all it is with Burnham going into number 10 is lipstick on a pig. He's going to indulge in pork barrel politics, and if you think it's going to work, you're a silly sausage. 0344 499 1000. Is Andy Burnham the answer for Britain? Elliot is in Hertfordshire, which is a leafy home county north of London. Hello, Elliot.
Oh, hi, Mark. Great show.
Thank you. Have I gone too far?
No, you have not. I'm going too far. My wife said I get shocked for what I'm saying. This man, Burnham, we don't know what he stands for. He's flipped and flopped as regards the various roles he has had. He has been, he's tried before to be elected. He's failed twice. And here's the most important thing that no one is talking about. He was elected by 24,000 people or thereabouts. Well, I didn't elect him. There's probably, 20, 30 or 40 million people who are the electorate of this country. They haven't elected him, and I know people who wanted Josh Simmons, the original MP. They voted for him, Simmons or Simons, I can't remember exactly the name.
Yeah.
But, yes, thank you. The point is that they've said to me, I never voted for him. I like Simons. This whole thing is a complete charade. He'll be surrounded by the same incompetent people. We're surrounded by the same problems externally and internally, and none of them have ever done a proper job. They've never produced anything. They've never run a business. You wouldn't go to a dentist, would you, Mark, if you need a cavity filled, but they've never been a dentist? You wouldn't buy a house and have your house checked by a surveyor who wasn't a surveyor. So why are these people running the country, and in the price of all politicians who have never done an actual job, jobs that you and I have to adhere to by working our day-to-day lives? They and him are a complete anathema, and that is why the country is in the state it's in. This party and the other party. But to your question, no. He is a complete waste of space, and he will be denigrated within 3 to 6 months.
Yikes. Elliot, listen, brilliant call. I will tell you, Elliot, there's a little wind noise on your phone, so we're going to keep it tight. But you made your point, and you're not going to get shot. My best wishes to your wife. Thank you, Elliot, for making that set of very powerful points from the heart. We will speak soon. Kevin is in Basingstoke, which is also a nice part of the country. Top of the morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
Now, listen, I think you're going to throw Andy a bone. You actually think that all is not lost. He might be quite good.
I disagree with all of your callers.
Good. Well, that's what we're all about. Tell me why, because he is a popular figure.
I probably would vote for Andy if there was an election, very soon, because he's the best there is. I mean, Nigel Farage is the worst. I mean, I would be like the people of Makerfield. I would use tactical voting to make sure that he didn't win, because he is the most disliked party leader or MP, because there was an opinion poll not so long ago, and it gave people 5 choices, 5 Labour. It was West Streeting, Angela Rayner, Keir Starmer, Andy Burnham, and all of them beat Nigel Farage.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, Nigel's personal ratings are not the best. But, of course, he's only in opposition. It's Andy Burnham that's going to be our next Prime Minister. What are his qualities that you like, Kevin?
Well, I know that he supports proportional representation, and he did say that he wants to cap political donations, which I think is a brilliant idea, because you've got Christopher Harbourne. I mean, without him, we would never have had Brexit. We would never have Reform UK, and the country would be in a much better position. Brexit's the worst thing we've done to ourselves in my lifetime.
Now, Kevin, but we need to get to the crux of it. We could obviously have the Brexit chat, and I'd be interested in doing that with you on a future occasion. But what we have to focus on now, not Farage, not Brexit, it is Andy Burnham. things do you think he's going to do in power which will be positive for my viewers and listeners?
Well, I think he will be tougher than Keir Starmer. I mean, Keir Starmer didn't stand up for himself, did he? He was pretty aware. He was too scared to say something that the Daily Mail wouldn't like. I mean, he's just got to get on with the job and do what's right for the country, and stop thinking what the right-wing media do, because they're after him already. I mean, they was after Keir Starmer from day one. Well, even before he became Prime Minister with the Currys. I hear you, Kevin, but I mean, they weren't exactly kind to Boris Johnson either, were they, or Liz Truss? Well, I mean, that is rightly so. I mean, look at the damage Liz Truss caused. She was only Prime Minister for about a month. I mean, Boris Johnson, I mean, he's the one that gave us Brexit, that's damaged the party, the country. So, I mean, that was rightly so. And I mean, his MPs wanted him out because he was so unpopular. I mean, Keir Starmer was unpopular. So, I mean, the Labour have done the same thing. But, I mean, there's been 11 other sitting prime ministers that have been replaced over the last 18 prime ministers we've had.
For sure.
So what's happened now is more common than the other way round.
Well, you're right. Labour aren't the first, and the precedent has been set by the Tories, which is why they're entitled to do this, even if it's undemocratic. The Tories got there first. But, Kevin, what I've got to ask you is, how is Andy Burnham going to stop the boats, which is an enormous cost to this country and very damaging to our society? It's also a national security issue. How is he going to grow the economy? These are the big issues facing the country. And all we know at the moment, Kev, is he's got lovely hair.
Well, stopping the boats is only a massive problem, because that's what the media want us to talk about. It's not a massive problem. I think
it's
asylum
huge.
makes up about 0.3% of the population. I mean, it costs about £3 billion supporting them, with an economy of £3 trillion. Is nothing, and it comes out the foreign aid budget anyway.
It's huge money, and some of these people murder our citizens, Kevin.
It's tiny.
Some of these people murder our citizens.
Things, it's tiny. It's not massive.
Kevin, you've shocked me.
We don't even take.
Takes a lot to shock me.
Don't even rank that highly in Europe or globally. There's so many more countries, like really poor countries, that take millions of asylum seekers.
Well, asylum seekers are a different thing, and of course, genuine refugees, no problem. But my audience are furious about economic migrants, Kevin, who pay criminals to cross the channel. Some of them may have terror links. Some of them may have a criminal record. A lot of them have a different attitude to women. Most of them won't contribute to the economy. People are not happy.
Well, most of them will. If you let them work, they will work.
Is that good news? Is that good news for the poor of this country who are struggling to get a job?
Asylum seekers are just people like everyone else. They're just born in a different country.
And do you not want the 10...
I worked in a hotel where it was full of asylum seekers. They were lovely people.
Well, of course, we're not going to demonise them. We're not going to demonise them. And then what about growth, Kev? How's he going to grow the economy? Because you'll agree we need that in order to pay for public services.
Well, growing the economy, I mean, that is not really my thing. But, I mean, I know Brexit has damaged it, so we need to get closer to Europe. But, I mean, people ain't got to panic. We're not going to go back into Europe. They won't want us back. I think there's 15 other countries that are queuing up wanting to join the EU, so we'd be back at the list. And, I mean, with the threat of Nigel Farage, they're not going to be interested in us for a little while anyway.
Kevin, I'm so happy. You made my day.
I don't think I made your listeners' day.
You made my day. I'll tell you for why. Because this place, right, on my watch, it's not an echo chamber, and there are millions of people that like Andy Burnham, and there are nearly 10 million people that voted Labour at the last election. And, you know, there is a mood of optimism on the left.
I mean, Nigel Farage scares me. He really scares me. Why
does he scare you? Come on, you're a grown man, Kevin. Grow up.
Conservative. He's a conservative.
Pull yourself together, Kevin. Why does he scare you?
He's going to take away our human rights. He's going to scrap the Equalities Act. That is scary.
What he's going to do is redraw that legislation so that it's not skewered.
We won't get a vote on it, will we?
Well, it'll be in the manifesto, but you're entitled to your view. Kevin, do you promise to call me again soon?
Yeah, I will.
Really enjoyed our chat. And Kevin, great.
Don't get too many bad comments
No, listen, I'll tell you something, right? You're entitled to your view, and the view that you have is shared by millions, and a lot of people are looking forward to Andy Burnham in number 10. Kevin, go and have a good Sunday. We'll catch up soon. Kevin and I there. We part company, ideologically perhaps, but he's entitled to his view. And some would say that what you're going to get with Andy Burnham is a new start for Britain. I'll tell you who I'm going to ask about that next is Edwina Currie. Don't go anywhere.
Old news. On to the next. There we go. That was Andy Burnham. He just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP and, of course, on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, and I'll tell you something. I spat out my tea the other day when it was argued that Andy Burnham, who will be our next Prime Minister, will be Labour's first woman Prime Minister. You heard me right. I'm not making this up. It's not April the 1st, and I have a background in stand-up comedy, but I'm being absolutely straight with you that there are figures in the Labour Party who have argued that Andy Burnham, the former Mayor of Greater Manchester, will be Labour's first woman Prime Minister because he'll have so many women in his team. Well, is he going to be Labour's first woman Prime Minister? Who better to ask than actual biological woman and politics legend Edwina Currie? Good morning, Edwina.
Good morning, Mark. May I just say how much I enjoyed that spat just before the break? That was terrific radio. Well done, Kevin. Well done, Mark.
Well, that's very kind of you, and high praise from a radio legend as well, of course, Edwina. You helmed the 5 Live weekend show in the evenings, and that was all about diversity of opinion. And we have to talk to each other, and we have to have these battles. That's the way forward for the country. The competition of ideas, Edwina.
Absolutely. Although, of course, if somebody really thinks that the answer to sorting out the economy is to rejoin the EU, they're just wrong. They're not looking at what is actually happening in our economy, at the 6.5 million people who are on out-of-work benefits of one kind or another, at the continual pressure from employers who should know better to keep importing people to do the jobs that our local people could do if only the employers looked after them a little bit better. There's a whole range of issues there that could be sorted out without ever going anywhere near the EU, even if they would have us.
Edwina, I wish you were Prime Minister. You're so right about that. If you look at the care sector, for example, if the rate of pay could go beyond the minimum wage and perhaps be increased by, let's say, £5 an hour, problem solved.
Well, this is where Shabana Mahmood, I hope, will stay as the Home Secretary, because that's exactly her attitude. She wants to cut immigration. In fact, she's been doing it really well. There's been a spat with her junior minister, Mike Tapp, this week, where he says you've got to have exemptions. We have to have exemptions for the care sector. And basically, Mahmood's attitude is tough. Let the employers make sure that they are recruiting and training and looking after their staff. I suspect in the care sector, you wouldn't need to increase the minimum wage by all that much, as long as you actually looked after the staff rather better than you do. Or indeed just make sure it's worth their while doing more than 20 hours a week. You know, many of the people they've imported are doing 70 hours a week, which is excessive. But if you look after your staff, they will be loyal to you. They will do a good job. The users, they call care users now, not clients, the service users will really appreciate that. It'll pay for itself. I suspect this is her calculation, because you'll be taking people off benefits who would otherwise be languishing at home, and you'll be getting them into work. How about that?
Most definitely, Edwina. And like myself, you are pro high quality controlled immigration. But that's not what we saw is it under, for example, Boris Johnson and the so-called Boris wave. I think what we saw there was in many ways, cooking of the books. You know, you temporarily boost GDP by having high immigration, but not per capita. And then you plug a skills gap in, let's say, the care sector. But it's an expensive solution. It's like a Ponzi scheme, because you bring these folks over, they will be dependent on in-work benefits and subsidised housing for the rest of their lives. We've got to give up the crack cocaine of mass immigration.
That's absolutely right. I suspect that part of the solution, one of the tricks, is going to be to reduce the cost of employing people. That's had a really deleterious effect ever since Rachel Reeves introduced the increase in national insurance to be paid by employers, and kidded it herself, let alone anybody else, that this was not a tax on employment. Of course it was. Now, if you make it more expensive to employ people, then what is going to happen is you're going to get more of a black economy, a little bit more of a cash economy, but you're basically using then the benefit system to subsidise unscrupulous employers, because people spend half the working week at home on benefits and half the working week actually working. But we've seen, such a collapse in employment in some sectors, like in hospitality, again, where we could really be helping people to get into entry-level jobs, helping the kids. How do we get to a situation where 1 million bright, healthy young people haven't got jobs? This is insane.
Well, it's shocking. And it's shocking that you should import people to pull pints in the local pub when youngsters would jump at the chance.
Absolutely. But it's more than that. Labour has always claimed the moral high ground, and I bet Andy Burnham will continue to do exactly the same. But what they actually do is what we should always judge them on. And what they actually do is exactly the opposite of what they would like to be doing and what they claim to be doing. And the outcome of that is that everyone gets very frustrated. And by everyone, I mean the voters. We get very frustrated with them, very angry with them. They've got another chance now. I didn't think they'd take it. I thought they'd keep Keir Starmer, just because getting rid of somebody at the top is really quite painful. But they have got another chance now. And Burnham has got best part of 2 years, 2.5 years to show what he's made of. He might actually make a difference. We shall find out.
Of course, we have to give him a crack of the whip, and we have to give him a chance. I anticipate it will be an unsuccessful premiership, but I'm happy, Edwina, to be proved wrong, and I'm happy to get Kevin back on air to wag his finger at me and at you. If we can, Edwina, let's take a call. Kevin in Leicester, you're live with Edwina Curry. Good morning, sir.
Wow, God, what a lot of common sense followed. Edwina nailed so many things there. What a brilliant, brilliant commentator. I actually rang up to sort of contradict. I don't want to be contradictory. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. But Kevin from Basingstoke, wow. Immigration's not a problem. I've got 4 sisters. I'm mid-40s. 2 of them are grown-ups like me. They won't go out at night time for a pint of milk. Now, let me make this point, please. This is a point that the left don't really understand, okay? They say that a lot of these people are nice people, and genuinely a lot of them are. They just want a better life. But this is what, and I see this on so many chat shows, and no centre right-winger ever says this to a lefty, right? If you've got a group of unknown men hanging around the shop, and they're all really genuinely nice people, and you're a single woman, needs a pint of milk, are you going to go out there and buy it? No, because you don't know. It changes society, even if they are nice people. That's the point, and no one ever gets...
Well, good point, Kevin, because large groups of men with no job and time on their hands are a problem anyway. And if you add to that they may descend from cultures that have a different attitude to women, even if they're not horrible criminals, it's still a massive problem.
Yeah, of course it is, because you just don't know. It's the fact that you don't know. So they don't take the risk, and then it changes the way people live. It changes the way people send their children out after school and getting them in earlier. It's changing everyone's life. It just said so many things in that short space of time, like, you know, going back into the EU. Well, why are we performing better than them, even with our massive debt?
Well, I know. And Kevin, stay with us if you can, because I want to come to Brexit in a moment, Edwina. I think that you voted Remain, but you're right that it won't be a cure-all if we went back in. But can you give us the female dimension when it comes to illegal immigration? Do you think that it is a problem for the safety of British women that we have undocumented men arriving in the country in their hundreds on a daily basis?
Well, the fear that Kevin has just described is a genuine fear. Of course it is. It's whipped up by some people that would like us to be much more frightened than we are. And it's also absolutely wrong that people can gain access in large numbers, in many thousands, to this country by illegal means. That's organised crime. That needs the money to go into serious policing, National Crime Agency, or whatever they're calling it now. Labour government seems to change lots of names of lots of quangos, which costs a lot more money and pay whoever's in charge a lot more salary, but we don't seem to actually make any progress. Organised crime is running these illegal immigration rackets, and we need to cooperate with other countries in order to do that. But I remember when we were in the EU, and who were we frightened of? We were frightened of Romanians. We were frightened of people coming in and pretending to be Romanians. And they were members of the EU and they had open access to those countries. We had no borders of any kind at that time. People voted for a whole range of things when they voted to leave the EU. I recognise this. And one of the key things they voted for was to be able to not be told what to do by anybody else, and particularly not by unelected bureaucrats.
Yes.
And that counted far more than anything economic. And you're right, Boris just took a total swipe at the economy when he allowed so many hundreds of thousands, well, 1 million people a year were coming in, including dependents. You know, that should have rung all sorts of bells.
Correct.
I can see why that happened. You know, people from India and Pakistan and many of the other countries were very strong on Brexit. I met quite a lot of them, Muslims for Brexit. And why were they keen? When I asked them, they said, well, we can get our people in. We'll be able to get our people in instead of the open access to people from France and Italy and Spain. And that's exactly what happened. It has to stop because we have so many people who are not being useful here now and living on benefits. And spending on benefits means we are borrowing huge amounts of money. It means we can't spend on defence. It means we're not spending on the police. It means we're not able to keep our streets safe. It means we aren't able to say to Kevin, it's okay. There'll be police out on the streets and your wives and your daughters and your sisters are going to be fine.
Will Andy Burnham bankrupt Britain? I'll be asking Edwina Currie after this.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. Edwina Curry joins me live from Derbyshire. Edwina, what do you make of the noises around Andy Burnham's economic policies, the idea of a land tax, the idea of a possible wealth tax, maybe even an exit tax? Can Britain afford Burnhamism?
Well, he's going to have to do something to keep the left of the Labour Party happy. And as somebody who has saved hard for much of my working life and got a decent pension fund, that's kind of scary because, you know, we paid for all our, we paid income tax and then we pay into and save and we pay into pension funds, all the rest of it. We do all the right things to make sure we're not a burden on the state when we get old. And then, you know, you worry about, well, is he just going to nick it? What's the point? What's the point? I think he's going to have to do something. He's going to want to raise more money. Even though he read English at university, he's going to be the first Prime Minister with an English degree. How about that? He's going to be quoting Dickens at us, no doubt. He's still got to balance the books somehow. And if he wants more money to go to the north of England, and since I live up here, I think that's probably a very good idea, then he's going to have to find very large sums of money from somewhere. So we'll have to see. And it's worrying because if you are a socialist and you believe that the accumulation of wealth is wrong, and that somehow, you know, people who accumulate wealth are wicked people and therefore should be taxed to the hilt, and you don't recognise how you're already doing that with very high marginal tax rates, then you can end up doing as much damage to the economy as they've been doing with benefits. That's part of the danger. You need bright, smart people who can work hard and who have good ideas and who will take risks and who will reap the rewards by seeing their bank accounts grow in future. And if you don't, those people will just go and live in other countries.
Well, I completely agree with you. And it just surprises me, Edwina, that the political left in this country have such a blind spot about wealth creators and about the economy, because it is wealth creators who invest in Britain, who employ people, and who generate national income with which you can have a progressive agenda. But it seems the focus of this current administration, and it may not change under Burnham, is to continue to tax your way to prosperity. It's not going to happen. Now, Edwina, I'm glad that we've got you because we have a developing story. And this happened yesterday afternoon in the leafy suburb of Ealing in West London. A man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a car hit several people on a busy shopping street in West London. 5 people were injured, with 3 taken to hospital following this incident on Ealing Broadway at 2:30 yesterday afternoon. None of the injuries, mercifully, were believed to be life-threatening. The Met Police have said that a 34-year-old Somali-born man fled the scene but was stopped in nearby Grange Park a short time later, where he was arrested on suspicion of dangerous driving and attempted murder. Now, this man has been arrested, Edwina. We won't go into the details of the case, but we must not normalise or get used to this kind of crime and the idea of a vehicle being used as a weapon.
Well, it looks as if that is actually happening, even though there have been accidents before.
Yeah.
The one that immediately comes to mind is the horrible one in Liverpool. During the celebrations after Liverpool won the league, I think it was.
Correct.
And a local man just decided that he was going to force his way through the crowds. And he ended up in prison, quite rightly. We've had a case in school, of course, actually, I think not all that far away from the current example, where a woman has been arrested. It's not very clear what really happened, but children were killed. If you're in a car, it's a lethal weapon, and especially modern cars, because they're so much bigger and heavier. The car that I've got parked outside, connected up to the electricity, because I'm a good girl, I've got an EV, is 2.5 tons in weight. That's the equivalent of 5 of the cars I had when I first started driving. So they're very dangerous things, cars. And it's very easy indeed with modern driving aids for your foot to slip from one to the other and to end up causing absolute havoc. It's horrible when it happens. I hope you haven't drawn attention to this because the driver that's been arrested was born in Somalia. We know absolutely nothing about that, and we ought to be very cautious. Most of the other cases that I can think of have been local drivers who, for one reason or another, have either had road rage or had a seizure or something else.
Yeah, you're right to point out those 2 other examples, which were either an accident or just the disgraceful use of a car, which ended in tragedy. But I think the ethnicity is important, and it's not about skin colour, but it's about culture, isn't it? Because we have witnessed, as our society has changed very rapidly, different kinds of crimes, machete attacks, acid attacks, and the use of vehicles as a weapon. I mean, it's worth noting that this individual has been charged with attempted murder, so this doesn't appear to have been an accident at this stage. And I just wonder, Edwina, whether we, shouldn't shrug our shoulders. This story is nowhere to be found on establishment media outlets, and we should be talking about it.
Well, I've just found it on the BBC website. So
parked under stories about the World Cup.
It's there. I mean, it helps to understand why everyone's so focused on the World Cup. At least we're getting some good news there. My goodness. I had a real
definitely. And Edwina, I don't want to labour the point, but we now have bollards, concrete blocks at Christmas markets. The reason being that there are people from alien cultures who object to Christmas markets because it's a Christian activity. You've got armed cops, I think, in Manchester city centre around Christmas time.
That's right.
And this is a problem.
Yeah, but it's not just a problem from people from what you call alien cultures. To me, it's an alien culture to drive a car, whoever you are, into a crowd, endangering life. And that is something that has been happening in different places around the country. Where you may well have a point is if somebody who hasn't got a driving licence and hasn't actually passed a test in this country is behind the wheel of a car, or somebody who's accustomed to driving on the right-hand side. Do you remember that case of the wife of the American serviceman who killed somebody? And she fled to America. We never could get her back and get her to face justice. So there can be problems when you have people who come from other ways of driving. But no, I don't buy into this. I think this is just people like Farage and his mates and Tommy Robinson wanting us to be scared stiff of anybody who doesn't look just like, well, you or me. And no, I don't buy into that at all.
I mean, just briefly before we get to Fiona in Berkshire, I grew up in the 1980s, Edwina, and of course that's when you were at the top of politics. We didn't have machete attacks, we didn't have acid attacks on people's faces to the same extent, and we didn't have cars or vehicles being used as a weapon. These are imported crimes, are they not?
We had the IRA. They used to blow us up. They used to load cars with
and that was bad
thousands of pounds of thousands of pounds of explosive and shove them into shopping centres like Manchester or in Omar in Saturday afternoon shopping crowds and kill hundreds of people. That's what we used to have. That was an imported alien idea, if you like, and the person who stood up to that was Margaret Thatcher.
Most definitely. Well, I think that's a very fair point, Edwina. Fiona is in Berkshire. Good morning, Fiona. You're live with Edwina Curry. How are you this morning?
Morning, Mark. Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. It's been a really interesting conversation with Edwina about this awful attack. And Edwina's right to point out that we don't have the details and therefore probably shouldn't zero in on Ealing and let the police get on with their job. But what are your thoughts about this wider issue?
I think it's quite interesting how there's quite a lot of underreporting of this. There was a very similar case in October 2023 when a car drove into a bus stop waiting and 7 people waiting for the night bus. I think it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. And there were really serious injuries in that, life-threatening injuries, life-changing injuries. One of them was my nephew. And there was a flurry of reporting at the time, and then it just suddenly stopped. No, there was no continuation. There was no follow-up. who was this man? What was he doing? Why was he in a Range Rover? He was 23. But since then, he was meant to stand trial in March, but he was an illegal immigrant and was deported last July. So he couldn't stand trial in the country and has therefore never faced justice.
And Fiona, is it wrong to link these sorts of crimes that we're not used to ethnicity and culture? Is that wrong?
No, I don't think it is. I think whoever does it, obviously it's a terrible thing to do, but I think there are people who come from cultures where they don't see the same things as right and wrong as maybe the vast population in this country who understand what's right and wrong and what they should and shouldn't be doing. And yes, there's still people who break the law, and that's why we have the justice system. But I think we are importing people who really don't see the same things as right and wrong as we do.
Fiona, I'm really grateful that you called. I understand you don't often call radio stations, so really appreciate that. Do join the conversation again, because it's been a valuable contribution. Edwina, you get the last word on this. It's a very complex issue, isn't it?
Well, the fact is we can't turn the clock back. And we have imported something like, I think it's about 10 million people. You know, the figures get distorted because we talk about net immigration.
Yeah.
But we import people from all around the world, and we export some of our best people, and they go and retire to other countries to warmer climes. I think they're mad, but there you go. So we have changed, and that is something that we need to accommodate. We're not going to roll the clock back. Yeah. We're not going to export all these people back to the countries that they have come from. We rely heavily on them. Apart from anything else, they often work an awful lot harder than the locals do, which is why they're here.
Edwina, always a privilege and always a joy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for making the time. Have a lovely Sunday. We'll catch up very soon. My thanks there to former government minister, best-selling author, and, let me tell you, legendary radio broadcaster as well, Edwina Currie. Thank you for that. Well, look, I think in this hour, Alex, you'll agree it's been a diversity of opinion, has it not? Lots more to come, 9:46. This is Talk Breakfast.
That was Andy Burnham, who just drove through there on his way to the palaces of Westminster to be sworn in as an MP, and of course on his route to number 10.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, let me tell you, two of the best books I've read in recent times were Inside Broadmoor and Inside Wakefield, which gave a devastating and fascinating insight into Britain's prisons. Well, the authors of both of those books are back with another compelling tome, Inside Women Behind Bars. Fascinating read with big issues being raised about our society and about how we incarcerate people and whether it works. Jonathan Levi and Emma French are the authors of Inside Women Behind Bars. They joined me now. Jonathan and Emma, welcome to the show.
Thank
Good
you very
morning.
much.
Hi.
Good morning.
Really good to see you again. Emma, why did you decide to pen this latest book?
Having worked with men in prisons for many years, it felt like a really timely moment to look at women. I think even though they only make up 4% of the prison population, there's a sort of disproportionate amount of attention that should be given to them and what's going on inside, the self-harm and the various issues that are facing them.
Emma, there are many people that take the view that it's counterproductive to lock women up, unless obviously they're a threat to society, but notwithstanding, you know, let's say violence or murder, that it's counterproductive to lock women up. What do you think of that?
I mean, I think there is an argument for incarcerating some women, of course, and I wouldn't steer away from that. But we saw in Scotland they're doing something really interesting with community custody units, just these sort of almost safe houses in both senses, keeping women safe, but also keeping people safe from those women while they get ready to re-enter society. But I think when you've got over 3/4 of women in prison for non-violent offences, yes, there's an argument to be had about fewer of them going there.
Jonathan, what sorts of reasons lead women to be imprisoned in this country? What happens to them that they wind up in jail?
Well, there's a lot of domestic violence related stuff. Lots of the violence that women carry out tend to be associated with sort of abusive partners and whatnot. But really, it's the whole broad range of offences that you get across the male estate. And one of the things that really surprised us and we kind of learned in the book and from talking to women that were locked up and from the people that looked after them is that, you know, there are a lot of female paedophiles in prison, more than we might like to think. And one thing that's also quite interesting is that paedophiles and sex offenders inside the women's estate aren't categorized and separated in quite the same way as they are in the men's estate. As you'll remember from Wakefield, there's that not on normal concourse exercise, the word nonce, you know, the origins of that word is from Wakefield prison. And that's because that's where the sex offenders, the male sex offenders were in a separate yard. It's very different with women. They're much more mixed up and all jumbled up together regardless of the category of their offence.
Would you be able, without going into graphic detail, to explain the sorts of crimes in relation to paedophilia that a woman might be responsible for? Does this go beyond a woman procuring material for a male partner? Does it go beyond that?
Sadly, it does. I mean, we spoke to offenders who described, you know, talking to women who had, as you say, in terms of the time of day, I don't want to go into too much graphic detail, but, you know, pimping out their own children, you know, finding, you know, stuff like that. I mean, really, really horrendous stuff. I mean,
yeah.
And abusing power, you know, working in nurseries, working in schools and using that position to, you know, have paedophilic activity.
Yeah, and of course, you know, that, I mean, what would you say, Emma? Is that grounds for incarceration come what may, crimes like that?
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. I think if anything, there's an argument, as Jonathan was just saying, for those women to be more isolated from the other women in the prison. If you're in there for shoplifting, you don't necessarily want to be mingling with someone who, you know, has been abusing children.
I mean, we had a very nice young woman who was in for a completely non-violent offence, and on the last day of her sentence, Rosemary West came and sat down on the edge of her bed the night before she left and gave us some sage life advice. I mean, you know, they really are all mixed up together. It's quite extraordinary.
How, Jonathan, would you fix women's prisons? For those that do go to jail, and rightly so, how might you organise prisons that they can be more effective?
Well, you do want to punish people, don't you, for terrible crimes done, but you also want to prepare them for the outside world. And I suppose they suffer from a terrible lack of resource. And a lot of women that go in aren't really coming out in any better shape, ready for the outside world, trained for the outside world. And I guess if resource and money and energy could be put in that direction, that would probably be better for the whole of society.
And Emma, are there examples where incarcerating women, locking women up, is the wrong thing to do and has proved disastrous?
I think
one of the things that's an issue actually is women tend to have quite short stays, so it's difficult for them to break the cycle. You know,
Right.
they're not in there long enough to overcome an addiction. They go back to the same pimp, the same abusive partner. They haven't had a sort of full cycle of rehabilitation. So I think actually, if they are going to go inside, they perhaps need to go in for longer to have time to properly change their life. And otherwise, they shouldn't have a custodial sentence. What we've got at the moment is a lot in between.
One other just really quick point, just to jump in there, is that we found in writing about women as opposed to men, is that the terrible, disordered, chaotic lives that some of these women lead mean that they actually enjoy going in for short stints in prison. It's a break from their life outside.
That's heartbreaking, isn't it?
It really is, and we didn't find that with men. There are not very many. We didn't come across men that sort of wanted to go inside for a bit as a break from being free.
No, and we've heard similar stories, haven't we, Emma, about children in care or children in abusive domestic settings who felt safer at school.
Yeah, I think it's very much the same thing. You know, women saying, I'll see you on Monday to the governor when they leave because they know they'll be back, or saying, this feels like home. This is the closest I've got to a home.
Is there a danger, Emma, that we demonise women who commit crimes more so than men, the sort of Myra Hindley syndrome, where because it's a woman, she's more evil?
I think there is a sense of outrage that women can commit these crimes. And, you know, people find that difficult to digest. I think that's also the case with Lucy Letby. There's just, I feel, a sense of disproportionate outrage around her because she's this sort of doe-eyed middle-class girl and people can't quite believe she's capable of it. That's not to make a statement on whether she was or not, but, you know, I think it's particularly disproportionate in relation to her.
And Jonathan, do you think the criminal justice system should take more notice of extenuating circumstances? Like, for example, can you explain how a woman that's a victim of domestic, emotional or physical abuse winds up in prison? What can happen that leads a woman who's being abused to go to jail herself?
Well, often they'll snap and commit an act of horrendous violence and then be punished for that act of violence.
So they're being relentlessly abused by a male partner, and then on one occasion they take out a knife or they're violent in some way and they get locked up.
Often that seems to happen. We also, you know, we came across a prisoner who was, you know, brought up by her brothers in a very disordered kind of childhood, and she was taught by her brothers to defend herself, and when she did, she got imprisoned for it. So it's, you know, and it's a difficult one. I think sometimes judges in the legal system come down harder on female violence than male violence. I think men can get into fights in pubs and in the street and things, and people just think it's kind of boys being boys. I think when women do that, they get arrested and sometimes locked up for it. And I don't think we treat men and women equally when it comes to violence.
Emma, was this a hard book to write?
It was a tough book to write, a tough book to research, but it felt important. And we met some extraordinary women. And as with, you'll have seen with Wakefield, there's a lot of sort of gallows humor in there. You know, people get through it with humor. So we've met some wonderful contributors who are funny and warm, even while they're telling the most devastating stories.
And is it offensive, Jonathan, that somebody like Rose West, responsible for the most egregious crimes imaginable, should have such freedom within the prison setting and have what appears to be a comparatively normal life?
Well, it's always been the case, actually, that kind of lifers, people of whole life tariffs, even in Broadmoor, you know, long stay, people, you know, as long as they're sort of day to day, not assaultative, not attacking other members of staff or other prisoners and not self-harming, they're actually the people that tend to have the sort of nicest lives inside, as it were, because they're sort of there for the longest. So, you know, I think that's definitely sort of a feature of our criminal justice system.
Yeah, I mean, Emma, we've talked about not demonising women for being in jail, but I think you can demonise Rose West, can't you? And I think I've got viewers and listeners that will be, you know, quite bothered at the idea that she's able to wander around, sit on people's beds, give life talks, you know, have a cup of